So good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for attending the regular council meeting of Monday, June 5th, 2023, in person and online. Welcome to Marie-Jacinthe Roberge, who is here with us. So here is our Director General Assistant, sitting next to Martin Houd. So, bienvenue, ma chère. C'est un plaisir de t'avoir parmi nous. Tu es ici depuis le 29 mai, à côté de notre cher Martin. Et donc, c'est un grand plaisir de t'avoir parmi nous et merci de t'être jointe à notre équipe. Oui, on a hâte de t'entendre. En tout cas, I can tell you that Marie-Jacinthe has stepped into her shoes rapidly. Martin's already started putting her in copy on all emails, which, as we know, it's easily 40 emails a day, I would think. 40 courriels par jour, facilement, Marie-Jacinthe? Facile, hein? Et puis, she's already handled a couple of files that you will hear me speaking about this evening, and she's doing a fabulous job. Donc, merci tout le monde. Donc, Martin Houd est avec nous aussi, continue comme DG par intérim, so interim DG for the next few months. In the next month, we will have to go and build a list of special projects for Martin to stay on with us, as his contract needs to be renewed starting next month, I believe. And his hours will be diminishing, where Marie-Jacinthe's hours will be full-time. And some special files, for example, the continuation of the agreement with, the resolution of the agreement with the Legion, looking at our active corridor with the train corridor, and of course our Deer Pine Lake Dam and other files of this nature. With regards to current announcements, so as you have heard through multiple automated calls, there is a water ban in effect due to the high increase of water usage since last Wednesday, May 31st. There also have been notices posted on the town's website. So this is due to high uses of water, where the standards in Quebec are 340 liters per person per day. And Hudson in the urban sector has increased its water usage to 700 liters per person per day. So that is more than double. It is time that we change our habits. This is 206% more than the average person. So this actually pulls an awful lot of water from our water aquifer in the urban sector. It is pulling along the Vivry corridor, where the sediment and the soil composition is much finer. So when we pull it much faster from the aquifer, it has a tendency to clog our wells, which need to then be maintained and flushed, and it is not a good situation. It also reduces our reserves for fire safety, security. Also to note that in the Hudson Valley and Alston Vale sector, which draw from a different aquifer and a different system, in that area, the current water usage per day is 1,415 liters per day per person. So that is 400% more than average and needs to be brought within normal usage. We understand that it's probably from use of filling pools, but also watering of lawns, and we have asked our community patrol to do the rounds and to make sure that people are shutting off their automatic watering systems. And for the first 2 days, there were notices that were assigned to those people, and as of Saturday, I believe, we moved that to fines. So do not be surprised if you have not adapted your water usage by now, that you will be fined for not respecting this water ban. Also, we strongly recommend that outdoor fires and the use of fireworks be reduced, as due to the very dry temperatures and the extreme level of fire danger in our region, according to Feu. We ask that you refrain from igniting these open fires, and please be mindful of your habits. If you have any questions or any comments on that, please reach out to us. This, as you may have heard in Quebec, throughout the province, it is an ongoing issue. This is one of the highest period, and already the fire has consumed substantial surfaces, and all through the province, and we need to be very careful. We do not expect to have a very wet summer, so we need to already be restricting our uses. And also, we will be revising our bylaw so that we can control that beyond just putting out notices, but fining people if we notice that you're not respecting this. So I would say that next month we will be changing our bylaw in this sense. With regards to communications that I've received and concerns raised by residents, we received a few comments with regards to the interface with Westward Senior and some of the streets adjacent. So this is one of the files that Marie-Jacinthe Roberge has been running for us, where she contacted the SQ in a preventative capacity. And she spoke with 2 constables who will be doing more frequent preventative patrols in that area. And also, there has been a communication sent by the school principal to parents of the students and also to students, notifying them that they need to be more respectful in that area, not accumulating trash, but also I believe that there were some students who had been bringing a sofa in that area and hanging out and not very polite to neighboring residents. And so the SQ recommends that if you see any unusual behavior or you feel that there needs to be more preventative patrols done by the SQ, please dial, if you're using a cell phone, 4141, or if you're using a phone, it is 310-4141. Also, we've signed up to the Ange des Parcs program. So this is a patrol group who will be walking through trails and bicycling through trails for people who are keeping their dogs off leash. So to remind them to keep them on leash, but also circulating in the areas behind the school to remind students to be respectful of others and not to litter and to be polite. Also, I believe that Marie-Jacinthe will be meeting with the, tu vas rencontrer, la personne justement à l'école, the principal, Mrs. Fraser, and seeing also with regards to the next school season to meet ahead of time to hold a meeting with the SQ, the school and the town, and other relevant stakeholders to come up with a more detailed and sustainable plan. Merci beaucoup. With regards to our regular operations, this month, last Monday on May 29th, Council received the presentation by the auditors of our audited statements for 2022. These will be presented to the public and submitted to the public next month at the July Council meeting, as the auditors were not available today to present to the public. So they will be here July, I think it's 3rd, 2, 3, July 3rd. Also, as some of you may have heard, the CMQ, c'est la Commission municipale du Québec, will be auditing 3 towns where Hudson has been selected as part of this audit. This year, the CMQ's focus is on best practices surrounding management of surpluses. Hudson was chosen part of 3 municipalities, I forget the name of the other 2, but essentially because we're of comparable size and also as we have a substantial surplus, this for them will give them a maximum of numbers and criteria with which to perform an analysis and provide best practices that are indeed for Hudson, but also meant to be published publicly and to be of use to other municipalities. The CMQ is performing this type of audit on municipalities below 100,000. So every year they pick a topic. In the past, it has been on best budgeting practices, for example, and this year it is on surpluses. Voulez-vous rajouter quelque chose? Est-ce que j'ai manqué quelque chose?
Ça va très bien, Madame la mairesse.
D'accord. So the report will be made public and I believe will be available in February of 2024. So this is a long process and requires a certain amount of input from our town staff. So it is using some of our resources and taking us away from other projects. But as We see this as a positive tool that will only come to provide us with greater governance, essentially actions and recommendations on how to improve on our own internal practices. Benoît, est-ce que tu voulais rajouter quelque chose? Ça va?
On what?
On the audit, the CMQ audit?
No.
Ça va? All right, with regards to public works, so Pine Lake, as I've mentioned in the past, we went out for public tender. There was one conforming bidder a couple of months ago. We've extended that, and we've extended it a second time, I believe. And we are looking to, we have actually, or the town directors have met with our consulting engineer, who is Pierre Labbé of EXP, and run through the proposal. So this is the tender, and looked at the amounts, just to mention that the amount for the professional services in this case amount to 570,000, I believe, 570,000.
600 000.
Presque 600,000. This is just for the drawings and the supervision portion of the construction. So it's not even the construction portion. So the numbers keep increasing. So in hearing of this high amount, the town directors have met with EXP, who is there as a consultant, to review this offer and to evaluate whether it is incredibly high or whether it is worth going back to tender and looking to parse it out differently. So the recommendations we've received from EXP and our directors to this point is to continue with the offer that is on the table. We will be presenting it to the working committee, so the ad hoc committee that was formed of local experts, and to run through this presentation with them and then bring again Labbé and a presenting firm as well to explain this to the public before we embark on the project, so that you understand exactly where these amounts are coming from, where we're headed, and why at this point we think it is a good idea to continue with this offer. With regards to Main Road East, là, je vais céder la parole à Martin, étant donné que c'est Martin qui a la mise à jour sur Main Road, l'élargissement et les travaux.
Oui, simplement vous informer que demain, on va terminer la fondation qui reste les 250 mètres pour arriver à la rue Bellevue. Mercredi, s'il fait toujours beau, ce serait la couche de pavage sur la dernière section. Puis, va suivre jeudi et vendredi la couche finale sur le 2 km. Dans les 2 semaines subséquentes, naturellement, ça va être la finition des driveways, les fossés. On devrait terminer d'ici probablement 3 semaines. C'est ce qui est au calendrier des travaux.
So in my non-direct translation into English,
Yes,
it will be adding the extra 2 inches, so resurfacing, continuing on that work that was started last fall for the next 2 weeks of adding that coat. It's essentially about 2 kilometers worth of work, where by the 3rd week we should have finished with the marking of that work, so we will be done by the 3rd or 4th week, if weather permits, for Main Road East. So the project, I think the project is going well. There had already been some corrections to the entrances to raise them in preparation for this extra layer, and also hydro seeding of the edges as well has been done.
On a eu certains problèmes là, au niveau de la signalisation. On s'en excuse aux citoyens. On a eu à nombreux cas, on a eu des employés qui travaillaient pour des sous-traitants qui étaient plus ou moins adéquats là, au niveau des comportements. On a fait des rectifications. Notre directeur suivait de près, mais c'est pas nécessairement facile, là. Mais on peut s'encourager que dans 3 semaines au maximum, on devrait être en mesure d'enlever tous nos trucs là, sur place.
So construction signage has been an issue as a subcontractor by the road surface construction company are not always the most reliable or the most communicative people, unfortunately. So there has been a follow-up and closer attention to that, but if all goes well, we will have the construction site will be completed in 3 weeks and all of the signage will be removed, but please be patient, is essentially what I'm hearing.
Thank you.
All right, so with regards to the 2023 paving program, last month we had announced certain street segments to be repaved for up to 2.8 kilometers worth of road. At this point we are waiting, I believe, on, we have mandated our CGT, so it's Raymond Chabot, Thornton, Grant Thornton, to do bilan commercial, so it's not even that, but it's a portrait of where we stand with our current debt load and surplus, and also to give us a better sense of whether we should be spending more faster or spending less slower. And so Martin has asked, because this amount would be coming from the surplus for this point, has asked that we put this on hold for 1 month, as the results should be coming out this month from our CGT, giving us recommendations on how to be spending or where to be allocating the surplus with regards to the fact that we have several projects such as the dam, Pine Lake, and other projects as well. So just to say that although we have a paving program, it is on hold for 1 more month, which is not a big issue, but is to make sure that we are spending in a responsible manner. I know that several of you are waiting for the presentation of sewer extension proposals or projects with regards to the area of Birch Hill, Brisbane, and Oakland in that area. That will be coming soon. I have a very long list that I keep nudging in poor Martin's direction, and I can tell you it was 99 items a couple of months ago, and I think he manages to square off about 12 a month, which is pretty remarkable. But I'm just as good at adding them back on. So it is on the list.
Je vais commencer à déléguer, là, ça sent bien. Je vais partager avec Marie-Christine.
So please do not despair. It is coming, but it is, the reason it hasn't happened is it is more complex than we all expect, and the numbers will not please many of us. So it's not an easy fix is really the issue, and it's been on our table since we arrived. With regards to urban planning, so permits, the delays on permits for urban planning continue to slow down. I believe we went from 4 to 6 weeks, but I haven't seen the latest report on delays on urban planning permits.
6 weeks, yeah.
6 weeks. So remember that this is a department that should have 7 employees. We have 2 in urban planning, 1 who is a building inspector, and we are using the external services of firms to help us give tree cutting permits, but also other permits. So it slows us down because they're not full-time. They cost us more money as well.
Our director do an inspection, do a lot of inspection today.
So our director of urban planning is even doing inspections.
Not easy.
Yeah. So all this to say that although permits are certainly a priority, it also slows down any other projects that we had, such as the revamping of our urban planning bylaws. With regards to, I had announced that we had spoken to Nature Action, or at least Martin and I had spoken to Nature Action a couple of months ago. So today Martin has moved forward and given them a bank of hours for 30 hours to look into programs and subsidies for the acquisition of key natural areas of interest, which is a great news. We have several properties in the area that we are looking at, some that have come to us through offers, but others that we would like to make offers. And Nature Action Québec comes with high experience in this way. Also, I look forward to working with them on putting together in French, un plan de gestion des milieux naturels. So it's sort of like it's a management plan for natural areas, but also an action plan for sustainable development as well. So these are part of their standard services, and in 2024 or sooner, it would be lovely to be able to work with them. I'm looking at Mark because of the Environment Committee.
Makes me happy.
Yes, me too. In terms of cultural events, the upcoming event schedule is now available on the town's website. Thank you, Laura. Also, the cultural survey the deadline has passed. It was June 1st. The results were that there were 355 Hudson residents who filled in the survey, which is a good result. I think typically we aim for 5%. This is a little over 6%, so this is good news. In this number, it is interesting to note that in addition, there were about 80 people from outside of Hudson that also filled out the cultural offering survey with regards to what their expectations and what they would like to find in Hudson, whether it is a positive experience or whether they'd like to see more. So this will be helpful for us to serve as a foundation for the Cultural Policy Committee, who will be meeting for the first time this Wednesday, June 7th, here at the Community Center at 6 p.m. Also, the British Car Show took place last Sunday, so they are back, which is great. And Laura was wonderful in organizing the first Hudson Bike Day. So this is a pilot project we hope to continue, where approximately 100 bike enthusiasts of all ages stopped by, but on Saturday between 1 and 4 p.m. This event was publicized on Facebook, on the town's website, and our newsletter. There were bicycle license plates that were handed out, where 60 of them, that was our inventory, were depleted within 90 minutes, so a big hit. Thank you very much for putting that on. A special thank you goes to the SQ cadets Alexandre Lebel and Sabrina Huard for participating and talking about bike safety, and also to the Hudson Fire Department firefighters, Rob Dumas and Anthony Palermo, for bringing some gear and showing people around their medical, I was going to say musical, but their medical vehicle. Also, thank you to Julia Schroeder and Pop Culture, whose popsicles were, as usual, a big hit. All right, with regards to committee updates, so Benoit, Senior, Mata, and also I believe there's an annual door-to-door event with the SQ that you're participating on. If you could give us an update.
So June 15 is the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day that was established in 2011 by the UN. It's an opportunity to emphasize the importance of adopting various measures aiming to recognize, denouncing, and intervening to counter elder abuse and improve the life of older people. A factor from the McGill University was the report on elder abuse published by l'Institut des Statistiques du Québec in 2020 revealed that in 2019, 6% of our seniors living at home in Quebec report having experienced at least one type of abuse in the last 12 months. This represents some 79,000 citizens. Note that that figure excludes all situations of abuse experienced in long-term care facility. So on June 8th, we will mark that event, and we will be assisting the SQ, and Grave we'll say it in French because in English it sounds weird. Grave will be here to help us to do our yearly door-to-door visit. Like last year, some streets have been picked up for our visit, where we will inform the people what services are available in the region. To conclude on that topic, I just want to say that it was great last year to be working with the SQ and to see how helpful they are to our community. Regarding MATA, we are meeting once a month since November 22, and we have 5 projects that we are working on. The first project is to organize presentation for our senior on topics that affect them, like finance, driving permit, and others. Provide opportunity where different generations will interact, for example, computer help. Encourage outdoor activity for senior. The second project is transportation for senior. For senior living at home, what support system is in place? Third project, what could be done to keep our senior in their home with the proper care? Project 4, discussion with business owner to discuss what could be done for our senior. Project 5, develop the proper channel and tool to communicate efficiently with our senior who don't necessarily go on Facebook, internet, and others. That's it.
Merci, Benoit. Do you have an update for the Circulation Committee? No.
What's that?
Circulation Committee?
No. We'll see it later.
Okay. Environment, Mark?
So the Environment Committee was involved, or we put a booth together for the Nichoirs Festival for Migratory Birds and Nature, which was held on May 13th. And ironically, the theme was water, and it was supposed to be held at Jack Layton Park, and then it had to be moved because of the flooding up to St. Thomas School in the back. A big shout out to the town, Parks and Rec Director Elizabeth Wainwright for helping us out, and Public Works just for helping us in our tents and sandwich boards and things like that, and changing gears at the last minute to change the venue. So thank you to those guys because they were fantastic. And we had a great day. We had a cornhole game for Waste Stream to help people understand where things go, compost, recycling, eco center, and trash. A preliminary voting for a town bird, which is part of becoming a bird-friendly city. So we will, at some point in the future, have a more official campaign to choose a town bird, but this was just to get an idea of where people were going in that direction. We gave away 75 trees, which was very popular, and some info about the Environment Committee and what we're working on behind the scenes currently.
Thank you, Mark. TPAC met last month. Also, the working group was put together for a project that is presented by the St. Thomas Church for the retirement of Père Demers. So this is for the addition of a sunroom at the back of the presbytery. So we met once in May, and we've received revised drawings which will be reviewed in the coming weeks. And the next working meeting will be scheduled soon. Also, as per each month, I will be holding a coffee with the mayor, myself, this coming Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon at Halcrow. With regards to the commercial sector, I'd like to thank Joël Lessard of Développement économique Vaudreuil-Soulanges for coming to present to the merchants on May 15th. The loans that he is managing for the province and the region, and has been managing since 2020. So on paper, of course, Hudson is doing very well, but I also saw this as an opportunity for the local merchants to be able to ask questions directly to Joël, but also to learn of the services of Développement économique Vaudreuil-Soulanges, and also to begin to think more concretely on next steps moving forward towards, hopefully, putting the SDC, or la Société de Développement Commercial, back on its feet. Also, you will notice this evening that there is on the agenda a pilot project for terraces. This will be described more in detail in the resolution, but it's essentially continuing in the vein that was started during the pandemic. However, we have listened to some of the comments and concerns with regards to fairness, in where some commercial entities were benefiting from public space for free, essentially. So there is now adding a tariff or a fee for that in the hopes of bringing it to be more fair for all. With regards to the SDC, in December of last year, we mandated Maître Bernard Plante to review the documents, the bylaw, and the SDC activities since its creation in 2013. And this is in view of reviving the Société de Développement Commercial, or the SDC. Maître Bernard Plante is a lawyer who was an SDC, or is an SDC Director General, and has sound experience in this field, more specifically in Montreal. They're very excited about Hudson looking to revive its SDC, and are certainly working hard at helping us get to this point. Peter and I and Martin and Melissa met Maître Plante last Monday, May 29th, and it's coming out to be very positive, where, according to Maître Plante, with all the activities and the list and all the resolutions that we have on file, and also with the previous SDC SDC's efforts and organization and their administrative accomplishments to date in keeping the registry of le Registre des Entreprises du Québec up to date. It is essentially keeping the SDC alive and in existence. So it won't take much to bring the SDC back into activity. He also reminded us of the advantages of having an SDC, which is one voice, one link to town and council, rather than having a multitude of different commercial entities reach out to us from different vantage points, either through Laura, or through me, or through Peter, or through the directors, and also meaning that they work together in assessing what is a good mix of festivals and events, and by the time these come to us as recommendations or requests for support, these have already been vetted and there has been an exchange rather than us trying to bring the different merchants together at the same table in the same room discussing these issues which essentially relate to them and their operations. So also, we have a bylaw in place, which is bylaw 619. So according to Maître Plante, it is reasonably simple to clarify the requirements for quorum, the definition for membership, and the different rights. At this point, he will be working with Melissa, who is here until the end of the month before she goes away on her longer production period with her family. But all this to say that by July, we hope to have Maître Plante to come and present to the merchant community these improvements to bylaw 619, but also we should have also a proposal for how the SDC tax would be calculated, and also proposing to move forward in September with the launching of a General Assembly, but on a special General Assembly to reboot and restart the SDC. So the merchant community will be receiving communications to this effect, and Marie-Jacinthe will be helping me with organizing the event of July 25th, where Maître Plante and also an SDC Director General from Montreal will be coming again to answer questions to the merchant community. Finally, with regards to regional, metropolitan, and provincial aspects, as you may have heard, la ministre Guilbeault of Ministry of Transport has submitted or presented a request for changes to la loi sur l'expropriation. So this is where presently if property is found to, if a town is found to be unjustly or unfairly expropriating a property through restrictions placed on a property, presently, judgments go in the sense where it's not just fair market value of the land, but it's also projected profits on that piece of property that are charged or incurred. And so this law has been in effect since 1973 with very little change in the last 40 years. So the changes that are being proposed by the provincial government is essentially to reduce speculation, but also to provide what in French is called une meilleure maîtrise foncière aux municipalités. So it's a better leadership and ability to manage properties and property rights and land use planning in municipalities. So it means that if we were to choose to put some reserves aside or some properties, some land reserves for environment protection or for heritage protection or economic development, there would be that whole notion of additional profit would not fall as a financial burden to municipalities anymore, which is good news. Also, with regards to the CMM, the Agora took place. So the Agora is every 2 years there is a there is a measuring process that is in place with regards to the Greater Montreal Area master plan, where they provide an update as to whether the CMM, the Greater Montreal Area, is meeting its targets or not. It's also an opportunity for members of the public and the elected to stand and give their point of view, but also to hear from people from different venues, whether they're elected, whether they're professionals, or from learning institutions. So this took place last week, and all of this is ramping up towards was the modifications of the Greater Montreal Master Plan, which, as we know, has put a certain amount of pressure on our natural areas of interest. And the next revisions, which should be in effect by the end of 2025, are looking to rapidly densify the Greater Montreal area even further. So it's putting a lot of strain. They're coming up with certain measurement tools and certain indices, so indexes for towns of 15 minutes and what would be a viable or a desirable place to live with regards to tree canopy, walkability, having everything within a 15-minute radius, which works well in a place like Montreal, but it's much harder to attain in areas such as ours that are on the rim of the Greater Montreal area. So all this is suscité. It is triggering an awful lot of exchanges and conversations where it's quite polarized between the conversations in Montreal versus the periphery, which we call les couronnes, or couronne sud et couronne nord. Anyway, so that is that. And with regards to the MRC, thank you, Darren, for attending the last MRC meeting in my place. I hope the experience was enjoyable. It is a very interesting arena, I think. It's fun to be fast-moving, and it's fun to be amongst 22 other mayors, and where the topics are garbage and recycling, and I'm trying to think what else usually, but it's pretty generic.
Sort of contract negotiations with the non-unionized was a big topic, so yeah.
It goes very fast.
It goes very fast.
So this is it. I will be recusing myself from item 3.1 as it is addressing 514 Main, for which I provided professional services in early 2021 for the owner for an update on a feasibility study. And just in the best interest or the effort of not showing any sign of potential conflict of interest, every time this project comes up, I tend to step back from the table. At some point, it will be nice to be able to re-enter the table, as this property and the core are certainly part of a greater, more specific planning program that I would like to begin. So, moving on to the agenda.
Sorry?
Je pense que je vais move on. C'était pas trop long? Un peu mieux? Ah, quand même. 35 minutes. I'm working very hard. This is a different format. I know it doesn't seem it, but I'm trying very hard to compress. All right. So, adoption of the agenda, item 1.1. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Peter made his moving, seconded by Mark Gray, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of June 5th, 2023 be and is hereby adopted as submitted en français.
1.1, adoption de l'ordre du jour. Donc, il s'agit d'adopter l'ordre du jour de la séance de ce soir tel que soumis.
Merci. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 2, confirmation of minutes. Item 2.1, confirmation of minutes of the last meeting of May 1st, 2023, the regular meeting minutes. Whereas council has reviewed the minutes of the May 1st regular meeting, I will need a mover and a seconder. Benoit Blais, seconded by Mark Gray, that the minutes of the council meeting held on May 1st are hereby approved as submitted. En français.
2.1, adoption du procès-verbal de la séance ordinaire du 1er mai 2023. Donc, il s'agit d'approuver le procès-verbal pour la séance du mois passé tel que soumis.
Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. First question period.
How many people
online? Yes, just a minute. How many people online?
20 online.
20?
Yep.
Look at us. And there are about 30 in the room?
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Big day.
25? So this is good. I will alternate between here, so please stand up to the mic, and online. So James McIntosh, a Hudson resident. Don't give your address, just confirm that you're a Hudson resident.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is James McIntosh, and there are two issues that I want to discuss with you tonight. First of all, we have a very large number of visiting motorcycles who come to Hudson on the weekend, and they are noisy, and I live on Main just west of Côte Saint-Charles, and some Sundays I get between 45 and 50 motorcycles per hour, and they're noisy, and I don't really think I should have to put up with that, so I would like the town to look into this issue and come up with a proposal. I think a limited ban on the weekends would be a good place to start, but that's up to the town to figure out how it wants to deal with this. On another note, I was listening to the discussion of Pine Lake. It's possible that we get the beavers to work on Pine Lake. They don't charge overtime, and they're not unionized. And as everybody knows, there's an enormous beaver dam in Jack Layton Park. And there are organizations now which have beavers, and they introduce them into watershed areas. So this is a possibility. So what I would like to do for you is give me a month, and I will do some research on this and tell you what's been done and what's possible, and then you can consider that possibly before you spend $500,000 on a new dam for Pine Lake.
Well, those are just for the professional services, right? Remember that part. Okay. But I think the issue is that we're in an urban area, so that might work in further away, more rural areas, but we're very close to one of our main arteries. So I don't know if we could manage it through something that is essentially unmanageable, right?
Well, we have urban beavers already, the beavers that inhabit Hudson. But look, as I said, I don't know very much about this. There's a literature on this. There are organizations who do this, who have beavers, and they introduce them into various areas. It may be pie in the sky, but it also may be possible. I'll let you know what the verdict is.
Yes, we're not about to make a decision next month, so
good.
You're welcome. With regards to noise, I know there's someone else in the room, there you are, and you had also come and presented to the Environment Committee, and you had come to meet with me both at the Coffee with the Mayor, so I've heard about noise. It's not just motorcycles, it's leaf blowers as well, it's people with lawnmowers, it's essentially learning to le mieux vivre ensemble, so better living together. Je ne sais pas, Monsieur Hood ou Madame Roberge, s'il y a des mesures qu'on pourrait mettre en place pour réduire le bruit des motos?
Je vous dirais que les motos, là, c'est un véhicule public. Puis dans la législation, on pourrait faire de la recherche, là, mais je n'ai jamais vu d'endroit où on peut refuser l'accès aux motos. C'est considéré comme n'importe des véhicules. Au niveau des souffleurs, des trucs de cette nature-là, là, les tondeuses à gazon, je sais que dans plusieurs municipalités, ils sont interdits. Puis il y en a d'autres où, exemple, les samedis de 3 h à 8 h le soir à la nuit, c'est interdit, et les dimanches de 3 h, 15 h à minuit, c'est interdit, pour permettre aux familles de se rassembler dans le silence et le bonheur et tout ce que vous voulez. Ça existe, c'est déjà en place dans la municipalité et ça fonctionne. Mais pour ce qui est des motos, je vous dirais que là, on est dans un enjeu qui... Puis souvent, les motos, c'est pas nécessairement la moto même, c'est le système d'exhaust qui fait du bruit, parce qu'une moto standard BM, c'est très peu bruyant à comparer aux motos qu'on retrouve. Puis Montréal, présentement, ne fait pas de contrôle encore sur le son. Paris le fait, en Europe, ça se fait beaucoup. Ils ont des appareils pour mettre en arrière mais présentement, au Québec, c'est pas vraiment implanté. Fait que la moto, c'est vraiment une difficulté, une plus grande difficulté à gérer, ça c'est sûr. Mais pour le reste, oui, il y aurait moyen de réglementer.
Est-ce qu'on peut poser la question à la SQ au cas où qu'ils auraient des suggestions? So, this is essentially, we'll start asking on best practices. Apparently there's already measures for leaf blowers in certain municipalities, and in Montreal, leaf blowers and others controlling time and days. With regards to motorcycles, in Europe, they seem to be more advanced in controlling sound, but we will certainly ask. We will ask if there's any measures or sensibilisation, sensitizing of people running through. Maybe it's a couple of signs or je sais pas. C'est bon, but thank you for bringing this up. Online?
Louise Craig.
Hello, Louise.
Hey, Chloe. I was just wondering, there was a fire at the Bradbury Trail. Could you tell me something about it? Because we can still smell it. And this was Friday, I believe, the fire?
C'est un incendie qui a lieu, remind me, it was on a trail, right?
Yeah, it's not that far from the Wellesley Well. It's very close, actually. It's a large fire.
Vous étiez au courant?
On parle d'un feu de broussailles là, dans un champ?
Ouais, pas loin
Mais
des
je dirais
puits.
que non, c'est pas de la broussaille, c'est des arbres qui ont été mis en feu. Là. C'est grand quand même.
Mercredi dernier? Est-ce que ça se peut mardi ou mercredi dernier?
Écoutez, moi, je pense, je me souviens plus, là, mais c'était vers la fin de la semaine. C'est un grand feu là, qui a été mis, les arbres qui étaient à terre ont été mis à feu.
Je sais que les services des incendies m'ont rapporté 2 feux qu'il y a eu 2 semaines d'affilée. Puis effectivement, ils sont intervenus, puis ils sont à la recherche des causes parce qu'ils soupçonnaient effectivement que ça avait été allumé intentionnellement. Parce qu'on a eu 2 interventions de la semaine dernière là, au niveau de feux de bois, à peu près au même endroit, puis on amène une attention particulière.
Does that answer your question?
Well, I don't see, Chloe, we'll walk past it again today, and you can really smell it. It's quite large, and given the fact that it's so close to the well, our main well for the town of Hudson, I don't see anything cordoned off. If it's under investigation by the SQ or the fire department, there's no yellow tape closing off that area for investigation. So, I mean, it's a sizable fire.
So I believe that Martin will look into this tomorrow morning.
All right. Thanks, Chloe.
Thank you. Question? Yes, you'd have to come to the microphone. I know you're a Hudson resident.
Frank Hicks.
Frank Hicks.
It's about the water situation. Back in November of 2017, on Lower Maple, there was a flood of water coming down. And the town was informed about it, and it took about a month and a half before they did anything, with an immense waste of good water before it was done, because there was argument as to who was responsible, the property owner or the town, instead of just fixing it and fighting that later. Now we have another case here where my next door neighbor, okay, this goes back to October of last year. She noticed excess water on her property. In November, she contacted the town. They sent somebody, they looked, they couldn't find a problem, they left. Like a month later, in December, they came back. They filled sand in there without still discovering what the leak was. They left again. They came back later in January, looked at it, didn't do much. Came back later in March and looked at, and they emptied it. They emptied it. And then obviously, if it's like, what good does that do, right? It's like emptying your bathtub while your faucet's still on. It's useless. So we're talking about, it was finally fixed recently. It took 1 day for the town public works to come down, dig the hole, find the source of the water problem, fix it, and set it off. Meanwhile, for close to 8 months, water was gushing. She had a lake in her front yard, and it was rushing down the street and dissolving the road. And we don't know what other problems are underground. She could have trees that are jeopardized by this. We don't know. Mm-hmm. But this is over 8 months. Water was left to gush out of a pipe, to the loss of how many millions of gallons of pure tap water.
I don't think it would be millions.
Well,
I
if
think
you
the
check,
wants to answer.
you know.
J'ai demandé un rapport complet là, considérant les faits. Je peux y aller assez rapidement, mais la fuite était si petite que la première intervention qu'on a faite, ils n'ont pas trouvé la fuite avec le détecteur électronique. Ils sont revenus à l'automne pour trouver la fuite en vérifiant les entrées de service, puis ils ne l'ont pas trouvé non plus cette deuxième fois. Au printemps, lorsque la fuite est venue en surface, lorsqu'elle a remonté, ils ont pu effectivement la réparer à cause de la tempête du verglas et les inondations. Faut le dire, là, on est 5 semaines, 6 semaines. On aurait pu le faire au début avril, mais il y a eu gros verglas, on était 4 semaines et tout. Fait que, tout s'explique dans le sens que oui, il y a eu des recherches avec les instruments, avec ça. Souvent, les bris d'aqueduc, pour ne pas le dire, là, ça fait 30 ans que je suis dans le métier. Quand c'est gelé, souvent, il faut attendre que ça sorte en surface pour être capable d'intervenir à la bonne place. Ça ne se trouve pas si facilement que ça. La fuite était aussi une petite fuite et très faible. D'après nos données, on va le dire, là, on estime que le volume perdu à cause de la fuite, entre 100 et 125 mètres cubes pendant les 7 à 8 mois. Pas plus que ça, ce qui n'est pas énorme si on compare à la semaine passée où on utilisait entre 900 et 1000 mètres cubes par jour supplémentaires. Fait que dans les faits, dans les 6 mois, on a peut-être perdu 125 mètres cubes. Puis tout s'explique parce que c'est gelé. Puis quand à l'automne, la fuite était très petite. Un petit peu plus tard, ils ont essayé de la trouver en creusant, ils ne l'ont pas trouvée. Puis au printemps, on aurait pu la faire au début avril, mais on a eu quand même 6-7 semaines. Fait que je considère que le travail a été fait selon les règles pour avoir travaillé dans les travaux publics pendant plus de 20 ans. Je pense qu'il y a eu des démarches. C'est sûr que ça aurait été mieux si ça aurait été plus vite, mais dans les faits, le travail a été fait. Puis je sais qu'aujourd'hui, si je ne me trompe pas, ils sont rendus à la maison aujourd'hui pour les réparations. La finition.
Mon français is pas très
Would you
beau.
like me to translate?
No, I caught most of what he said. I didn't catch all of it. But, you know, I saw this water. I saw it gushing out of the ground. This was not a small leak. This was a major leak. I saw the lake in her front yard that was made, and it was running downhill. And in the winter time, it didn't freeze over, okay? Which means that was running water, okay? So it was running winter and spring. I mean, we don't know how much water is lost. You don't know, I don't know. My point of coming here today is basically to ask, do we know how much water wastage, because I'm mentioning one here on Lower Maple, and I'm mentioning another one across the street from me. Do we know how much water is being wasted into the ground, and what can we do to check to make sure that if there are leaks anywhere else in Hudson, that we block them up?
This is an ongoing conversation, water leaks and everything, but I believe the one from 2017, and I know that Jim is probably watching, but from memory, and maybe Darren will remember, it was on the private portion of the property, which is why we weren't able to fix it right away.
And it wasn't.
And it wasn't?
I have a photograph of that when we always claimed it wasn't, and then the work crew was in there. I took a picture of it. It was definitely,
but I'm not here to disagree with you. But your question was.
I still have the photo.
Frank, your question was, how are we improving on water leaks? So I believe in Quebec there is a standard which is 15% of loss, and we're always asked to continually look to ways to reduce any breakage. And there's been an awful lot of improvements of the saddles, right, les sellettes, on Main Road for that purpose because there were breaks, and also in the improvements of the mains along Main Road and anytime there is a big project coming in. So we are upgrading those main conduits, and the leaks should be improving each year. So I appreciate your comment, but I also feel that you're also trying to sort of tap us on the head. And from what I'm hearing, they have done their due diligence and they are following up on that request. And there were several
anyone on the head.
There were several issues that brought it to the point.
Problem. And if we're talking 8 months of some a problem
with winter in between, right?
Not being addressed, that's a problem.
J'ai la réponse pour vous, Madame la mairesse. D'ailleurs, c'était bien préparé. Depuis 2020, la Ville a travaillé sur la localisation des fuites et a réduit la consommation annuelle de 70 000 mètres cubes depuis 2020. nous déterminons avec les experts que dans le système, le maximum est à peu près à 5 qu'on a de perte. Puis ça inclut les fuites publiques et les fuites privées, comme les toilettes et robinets qui fuient là, dans les maisons qui sont pas
Ça, c'est le rapport de Maxime. Ça vient d'où?
Ça, c'est Yann, le directeur, qui l'a produit suite aux détections de fuites qu'ils ont fait avec les compagnies. Ils ont commencé seulement en 2020 à faire de la détection. Puis, année après année, ils répètent. On se promène, puis ils font de l'écoute. Ils font de l'écoute, ces bonnes fontaines. Fait que je pense que le travail se fait. C'est pas parfait, mais je pense qu'il y a un bon travail qui se fait.
Does that answer your question?
Not entirely, but somewhere.
Well, what I'm understanding is that they are addressing leaks, and it is improving and has been improved.
That is why I'm bringing it up, because it had to be addressed, and I'm glad we are improving that particular aspect. Okay, thank you.
Online?
June Penny.
Hi, June.
Hi, that was fast. Raise my hand and I get a response. In follow-up to what Frank was just saying, and the statistics that came out to all of us as citizens, I'm questioning why, have we actually looked at where the town thinks the water usage is happening? Is it because people are filling their pools? Is it because people are washing their cars? They've got the spring energy. Have we actually looked at where that water is being used?
Well, I think at the beginning of the meeting, I explained that there's two main areas serviced by our potable water system. So there's what we call the urban network, which is fed through the Vivery wells and treated up, I forget the name of that street, but it's up Cameron. And that one is, right now, the usage last week was double standards, double from provincial standards, whereas in the Hudson Valleys and Alston Vale area, it is 4 times standard usage. So we know that it is in that area that there's the worst, but we're all culprits. We're all using too much water. And by sending the community patrol at night to essentially make sure that people who have automatic watering systems have been closing them off. I've heard of a couple of people reporting that those were still in function on Wednesday, but that the situation had greatly improved by Friday.
Historiquement, les semaines que les clients, les utilisateurs prennent le plus, c'est toujours soit la dernière, en général, la dernière de mai ou la première de juin. Ça, c'est l'historique à tous les ans. C'est ajouté à ça 4 à 5 jours de grosse chaleur. Fait que les gens, en même temps, les piscines, l'arrosage, les autos, les driveways, tout ce que vous... Fait que ça s'est concentré, c'est quand même assez unique, là. Puis partout au Québec, présentement, si on prend Vaudreuil, si on prend Pierrefonds, que toutes les villes en général sont en restriction parce qu'on a tout eu en même temps. Si ça avait été partagé, c'est-à-dire une température de 20 degrés, puis l'utilisation standard des piscines, on aurait passé au travers plus facilement. Mais là, en même temps, on a eu 5 à 6 jours de grande chaleur et le nettoyage et les plantations. C'est ce qui fait qu'on s'est retrouvés avec... parce que la dernière fois, je pense que ça date de 2018.
Chez nous?
Non, ici?
On le fait toutes les années.
Non, je parle qu'il y ait des difficultés au niveau de l'eau potable.
Oh, mais on avait des problèmes avec les
valves, mais depuis, ça fait plusieurs années, en fin de compte, en général.
June, I don't know if you would like me to translate what Martin was saying.
I understood everything, so that's fine. But I still question, like I know everybody kind of focused on everything all at once and with their spring cleaning and washing cars and filling pools, et cetera. But how are we in comparison to other towns? I find it hard to believe that Hudson would be the clean freaks and want to do it all at once, and it didn't happen in, I don't know, Senville, for instance. There's large homes there's large properties to water, there's cars to be washed, pools to be filled. Have we compared ourselves to other towns? Is it just simply a miscalculation? I mean, I being in the landscaping business, as you know, I find it really I'm having trouble understanding why this year, I know it got hot and everything, but if you look at the lake, there's a lot of water out there. There's still like a high water table. So I, for one, cannot understand this shortage of water that we're talking about, because underground, there's still a lot of water there. So why are we panicking and putting in all these, reinforcements? I'd like to see us taking an approach of, and maybe this is the Environment Committee that could participate in that, or we need to educate the people, like turn off don't run the water when you're brushing your teeth, think about twice. If you pee in the toilet, you really need to flush it. No, you could wait and,
Right, but I think, June, I think we've been over-consuming water for a long time. Whether Hudson is worse than others, we could play the game of comparing ourselves, but we already know that we're way above national or provincial average. And from climate change and le réchauffement climatique, so increasing climate temperatures, we need to be changing our practices with regards to how we use water, but also this is potable, so it's treated water. It is not just raw water that is pulled from the lake or pulled from the aquifer, and as you probably know, just a high water level in the lake does not equate to a high level in the aquifer. And I think we've mentioned this several councils in a row, where because the urban sector pulls its water from the Vivry area, where the type of soil is much finer, that if we pull it too quickly, we have a lot of water there, but we can't pull it too fast. So we have a reservoir, a reserve that is for fire protection measures. And because we've had to use part of that for our reserves, it means that it's depleted. So we have to keep sort of refilling it. And if we refill it too fast, we are not putting at risk, but we will have to then clean out our wellheads more frequently. And all of this because it's hotter and people are trying to do all the things that they usually do in the month of May, when in fact if we do them over a slower period of time, and maybe we can start to accept that our lawns don't have to be perfectly green. So, or we can have less lawn, but we all have to change our practices, all of us.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But in the meantime, like these numbers that are being produced, like how did you arrive at that amount of water being used? Like, what was the calculation?
So we have a treatment facility that has counters, and it shows how much water it's pulling from the wellheads, and it shows how much water is being treated, because we have certain chemicals that are measured, and that, the quality of the water is tested. I think it's on a daily basis, if not multiple times a day. But this is scientifically based, and we are monitored by the ministry. And to the point where the wells at Hudson Valleys and Alston Vale have, well, both systems have a maximum capacity of production that is accepted by the ministry. And when we go above that level of production, it sends a red flag to the ministry that then says to us, you've gone over your allowable amount. Please show us how you are actively going back to your municipality or your population and asking them to curb their use, which is what we have done. So the ministry is asking all municipalities, it's not just Hudson, but to seriously watch water consumption and to change the practices. There's a policy in place at the provincial level that is exactly going in this sense. And there are policies for electricity consumption. There are policies for, we all have to change our consumption patterns.
Mm-hmm. But is it all of our wells that are showing that increased volume, or only a few of them?
Yes, I read the numbers at the beginning of the meeting. In the urban area, it's twice as much as what the national average is. And in the Hudson Valleys and Alston Vale area, it is 4 times higher than the national average.
So it's not everyone, then, that's consuming too much water. There are specific areas.
It's all of Hudson is using too much water. The national average, or what they're looking to have standardized, is 350 liters 360 liters per person per day, and the urban sector right now is at 700, and the Hudson Valleys and Alston Vale area is at 1,400.
Okay, but let me stop you right there. Okay, those numbers, I myself, one person, there is no way that I consume 360 liters per day.
So you're not the culprit, June. You're not the culprit.
We need to question, like, I have a scientific background too. I was a lab tech for 45 years, okay? So I hear these numbers and I start questioning them because it doesn't make any sense to me, okay? What you just stated just now about how many liters per person, I'll ask you yourself, Chloe, like, do you use 360?
I'm a big culprit. Well, I do collect water in rain barrels. I have a bath every morning, and that's a definite no-no. I'm sure Mark's going to kick me soon. So, no, we all have to change our habits. But I do shut off, the sink tap when I brush my teeth.
But I don't agree with the numbers the statistics that you've just stated. There's no way that we use 360 liters per day. There's no way.
I think there are tools online where you can fill out and do an assessment. Maybe that would be good for the Environment Committee, but there are tools that are on the Environment Ministry maybe's website to sensitize people where you can see what type of toilet you're using, whether you use a governor on your taps, and it will give you sort of how many times you shower per week and baths and so on, and it'll give you an assessment of, therefore, this is probably what you use, and here are standard changes that you could do to improve your footprint. With regards to the 1,400, I have to guess that it's the watering systems and everything else that goes along with it. But again, I don't think this is something we're going to solve here tonight, June, but the point is we have to sensitize our population to rethink their patterns of use of potable water.
Well, and another idea when we come back to the water meters, like, what I thought about the other day is that people could maybe opt into that. They themselves pay for the cost of installing a water meter. And if you fall within a certain, a range of the amount of water that your home is using, then you become exempt from the bans of watering. Is that something that
the idea is still to reduce, your water use, but that could come.
But why the water meters?
There might be ways, June. I think at this point, all of us need to be thinking on how to reduce it. And again, I mean, summer months are not the full year, but there are peak periods, and this season is particularly dry and demanding, as we've heard.
Okay, well, I'm not going to take any more of your time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there questions? Yes.
Hello, hi. My name is Kyle Bowman. I'm a Hudson resident. First of all, I'd like to celebrate the town on the watering restriction communication. I thought that was very effective. I received...
Laura's our communication person.
4 phone calls. While I was at the Scouts gathering, I quickly rushed home and turned off the hose. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another point, there was a mention on motorcycle restrictions. On Crescent, we have a sign for no scooters. I don't know if that's an exception, but we have a no scooter sign.
It wouldn't be enforceable, I would expect, but it reminds people.
It's a deterrent, perhaps?
It's a deterrent, perhaps.
Scooters or?
It's for scooters.
Okay.
Yeah, of course, they still come.
Motorcycle.
Yes. Maybe that's a different class, obviously. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, just wanted to say, maybe there's precedent for motorcycles.
It's a good idea, but it's not working.
No. Okay, just wanted to mention that in case there was some kind of relation. Secondly, I would also like to thank the city and of course, Laura. We met yesterday just briefly on Crescent as I was complaining about the garbage situation, couch situation, et cetera, et cetera. I happen to live right across the street from the high school, the backside, and my neighbor Kip and I spend a lot of time vigilanteing, cleanup. So I want to thank the town for really taking steps. Well, also Mark has been CC'd in a number of emails. I appreciate that, and there's been a lot of venting among the residents. So we appreciate any step. We were all kids, so we understand what it's like to feel bored. Where there's a school, there's nothing to do. There's not even a basketball net. So they are loitering behind the school. The teachers, I see, I work hybrid, so I see the teachers. There's limited enforcement. the kids are sitting on the street, literally sitting on the street. When cars want to go by, they have to U-turn around them. There hasn't been a cop traveling between 12 and 1, which is lunchtime. Teachers are not accountable to the students because they're on public property. As I mentioned the last time, I'm a coach for the athletes, so I spend a lot of time with them, and I hear about, you know, what's going on over there. So there has been some ideas with closing the fence, putting a rock garden in that area. Now what's happening with the pathway to Lakeview? That's another question. But we do want to thank you for taking those steps. I do feel that if we are phoning for security, et cetera, kids can be like crows. They'll teach the next generation that, you know, I'm the grumpy old man who's causing the trouble. And there have been incidences where, as a result of neighbors complaining, stuff has been stolen or vandalized to some of the houses nearby. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. We were all kids. We know how it's like. So bombarding them with security, you know, there are some, we can all think about different impacts, but I was wondering if there are other ways that we can engage the students more in the town. They do have a positive economic impact on the town. They spend a lot of time spending money. Maybe as a town, I'm not aware of all the activities that are done, but perhaps there's more that we can do to engage them. Number of students are not residents of Hudson. They are coming from afar, Saint-Zotique, Pancourt, et cetera, and using the town. Just going back to that one area where the students are smoking and spending a lot of their time, whether they're smoking or not, just loitering. They're there in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. They're there at lunchtime, and then they're there in the afternoon. So usually about 3 hours they can spend there. And you know, the question is, they're out of sight, out of mind for the administration. The administration's been very, very helpful, but still at the same time, I don't feel that there's enough accountability for their actions. So it's also retraining the staff as well, that as much as they want to preach about environmental protection, engagement, activity, et cetera, there needs to be more action from the teachers. So I'm just venting now. I just wanted to thank you all for your commitment to that and solving this problem. Kip and I, we've been spending a lot of time cleaning up. So that's all. Thank you very much.
It's nice to put a visage, a face to the people. So thank you very much. Last December, Laura, Ian, Peter Schiffke, and I went to meet a class of them, but it's the leadership class, so probably, you know, the less troublesome students, and had suggested that we put together a youth committee or something. What they're asking for is more garbage pails and more parking spaces, essentially, but I agree with you that more activities would also be nice. Now that we have our Director of Culture and Recreation who's around, just a little bit older than them, I think that it'll be easy for her to start to think of ways to engage them in our activities. And also Marie-Jacinthe has children of her own, and this is one of her pet projects, so I think that her listening to you and being in the middle of this and having conversations with the two people from the SQ as well. I think there was that notion of meeting ahead of next term with, as we said, stakeholders, so it could be people who live along the street, and thinking of constructive ways to work on this project rather than just, you know, putting more limitations on them. They're only there for a couple of years, right? Because they go junior somewhere else, they arrive senior, as you said, they're from so many different municipalities, but essentially we want to bring them into the process on how to build community with us. And I think once you put them to work, it's like any child, any animal, they really feel pride towards what they're doing. So we'll see. On va trouver quelque chose à faire. But thank you for coming this evening and voicing so clearly. No? One more? Yeah, go ahead.
So Helen Kroganski, a resident of Hudson.
Hello,
first of all, I'd just like to say for the kids, really, there's not much for them to do, not many places for them to go. And I would really ask the town to find ways to harness there's some wonderful kids here, but where are they going to put all that extraordinary energy that they have? There's no real place for them, and I think it would be worth for the adults and the kids to get together and start thinking of how we can harness that energy and make it positive, and not just have SQ going and checking and fining and getting them running away. I don't think that's, I think we can find positive
I'll
actions.
Just clarify that the SQ people who are involved are more the community agents. They're not the ones, it's not the speeding ticket people.
I understand,
right?
but it's still, you're having, I think we have to start thinking of positive actions to embark the kids into our community, to be part of it, to be part of the whole ensemble. I just wanted to ask, I wanted to know what was happening in a totally different level of talk is with the history garden in Halcrow. It's looking pretty forlorn and pretty neglected. It's a place that was enjoyed by many people to go there, elder people, families, just to go and sit, and now it's looking not too cared for, and I wonder if the town has any plans to...
What is missing? Is it maintenance or is it planting?
Maintenance. It's really neglected. It's if something could be done. It's one of the few places in the town that's sort of like a little mini park, a little jewel. And
no, I know it's included. It's included in the contract this year.
I know it's included in the contract, but it's just if some attention could be put, because I've been getting a lot of calls of people saying what's happening.
Martin will look into this.
So it would be very much appreciated. Just it's a little sort of a little oasis in the middle of the town. Anyway, thank you.
Je disais, Madame la mairesse, que ça manque un peu d'amour.
Un peu d'amour.
Ça manque d'amour, oui. L'amour, toujours l'amour. That's a secret for everything. For our kids, for our elders, for our town. Pride of place, pride of place, and love for our citizens of all age groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
Are there people online? No. We should have put out more chairs, Martin, because there's some people who are sitting on the edges. C'est bien. La prochaine fois, on mettra plus de chaises. Comme ça, les gens pourront s'installer.
Madame Laura, une délégation de pouvoir, merci. Mais il y a de la place en avant, là. Il y a beaucoup de place en avant.
Yes, please.
All right. My name is Stéphane Desjardins. I've been a resident for almost 20 years. I'm the one who raised the noise and pollution issue back in November with you, and then there was a lot of process back and forth, and I was invited to make a presentation at the Environment Committee, and so I did. My issue is not only the fact that we have a noise problem, but the noise problem is also generating enormous amounts of pollution, which compound the problem of global warming, which increases the problem of water drought that we have now, okay? So, but what I'm listening, what I'm hearing this evening is it seems that I have caught your attention. My message seems to be on the radar, but what's the next step? Obviously, there's no draft proposal right now, right? What's the agenda? What's the next step? How do we move forward to control this noise problem and pollution problem?
Towards noise pollution?
Both.
Or environment protection?
They work hand in hand.
For some people, yes, and for some of us.
A leaf blower makes a ton of noise, but it also produces a ton of pollution. So, it's like the chicken and the egg type of thing.
So the sense I'm getting is that we're moving towards restricting hours or proposing restricted hours on the use of that type of noisy apparatus, but after that, with looking to going towards something that is gas-powered or electricity-powered, I don't see that happening unless we do une campagne de sensibilisation. So, some sort of bringing the public into the process with us, which is something that I'd like to develop with the Environment Committee. Mark has lots of ambition with regards to improving measures that are in place. We just do not have the staff to carry any action forward for us. So we can have as much ambition as we would like. We have been looking for staff for a year as a technician in environment, and as you've heard, for the permits for tree cutting, for example, it is an external firm doing it. So everything else is in-house. We kind of do it ourselves. You are running the Environment Committee on your own, pretty much. And any incentive that I have of either suggesting that we meet Nature Action or other comes straight from me, and it's me pushing that forward. So unfortunately, unfortunately, until we have permanent staff in place that is going to be carrying any orientations or vision that we have, it will be very slow to get anything. But that doesn't stop the public from being involved and doing exactly what you're doing here, which is at least by speaking at the mic, you're sensitizing the people in the room. There could be other ways. We could invite speakers. We could do a lot of things, but a lot of it will have to be driven by the people here and then either come ready-made for implementation because we don't have that in-between piece at this point.
I don't understand why, for instance, in Vaudreuil-Soulanges, annoying noise is stopped at 4 p.m. on weekends. In Hudson, it's 6.
Well, those are simple fixes. We can do that.
That's a simple fix,
yeah,
but
sure.
Like, do we need more staff to change a bylaw from 6 to 4?
No, but that's an easy one. As I said at the beginning, the noise, la nuisance, the nuisance is easy to fix, but all the others, converting from, say, a gas-powered to an electricity.
That's a different ballgame, and I agree
exactly.
with that. I agree with that.
And that's where I was saying that would take more investment, more time.
I fully agree with that. That's going to take time. But in the meantime, what do we do tomorrow or next week or next month to stop when you're sitting down on your veranda for dinner and somebody starts a leaf blower at 6 p.m.? Why do we still have that in Hudson? In Vaudreuil, it's 4 p.m. Like, how long does it take to change that bylaw just to cut the noise down by 20% this week, this month, and then we'll cut it down and cut it down and cut it down.
You're speaking to the past DG of Vaudreuil, right? Okay. So he knows exactly where to find that.
C'est un règlement qu'on a présenté il y a peut-être 5 ans pour protéger l'environnement du bruit. J'en parlais tout à l'heure d'ailleurs, là, entre samedi et dimanche, entre 15h et la nuit. Puis ça, je viens d'en parler avec ma consoeur, c'est quelque chose qu'on peut faire rapidement, puis qu'on peut... ça dure, l'adoption, c'est...
2 séances.
C'est 2 séances, mais c'est quelque chose qu'on peut faire rapidement. Puis effectivement, qu'il y a de très bons résultats à Vaudreuil, puis...
Je vous implore de faire ça le plus rapidement
possible. Vous n'avez pas besoin de m'implorer, juste de me le demander.
Je vous le demande, publiquement. Je vous demande.
Ça va me faire plaisir.
OK. Ça, ce serait un excellent départ pour réduire le bruit.
On va le lancer pour le prochain mois.
OK, parfait.
Si la mairesse est d'accord.
Oui.
Et le conseil, naturellement, aussi.
Mais les prochaines étapes, the next steps, which are more complicated, like banning or whatever, I'm more than willing to contribute, like I did for your committee. I made a 45-minute PowerPoint presentation.
You've got an ardent supporter here, right?
Yes,
I'm the one who like, slow down.
But anyways, my message here is to make sure that the process is moving, and this is music to my ears.
No, he's wonderful.
Okay,
they're both wonderful. Thank you very much. Yes, please come to the mic. Are you a Hudson resident?
Yes.
Yes, good.
My name's Lori, and as someone who doesn't always have access to a car, I'm a bit concerned about the train's future in Hudson. So I used to go to John Abbott, and if you had a class at 8 in the morning, the only way to make that class is the train. The buses get stuck in traffic, and you will either miss your transfer, or you won't make it all on time for your class. In addition, if you have a class that finishes at 5:30, you will not catch the last bus home, and you have to get picked up or wait for the train. So I was wondering if the train is getting removed, are we going to change the bus system so that it works better for students? And have we thought about improving the train so that more people can ride it? I know a lot of people who went to school downtown who would drive into Vaudreuil to take an earlier train so that they could get downtown at an earlier time. So have we considered either making the train more direct, so having stopped, say, at Hudson, Vaudreuil, St. Anne, Dorval, and Vendôme, and having it an express route, or making the earlier train leave earlier so that people get downtown earlier. And then another thing I was thinking is because we have more hotels opening up in Hudson, it might be a good tourist attraction. We could either get people from Montreal coming down to spend the weekend in Hudson, or we could market Hudson as a place to stay and go downtown to Montreal for the day.
Thank you. I also took the train for 10 years, going to Montreal, working in Montreal. If the train is removed, it would be replaced with a much better bus system and direct routes directly to Vaudreuil, so to Vaudreuil's train station and go. There's been a lot of requests to EXO to look to making a more direct train, so not stopping at every train station, but doing an express route. They don't seem to be interested in going this way. I'm not sure exactly why. I think they're putting most of their efforts towards the REM, but also what they call la refonte de la desserte. So they're looking to service more the regions interregionally rather than to go straight into Montreal, as there is the hospital coming. And also they are noticing that movement patterns are more interregional. So for example, Hudson to Saint-Lazare, Hudson to Vaudreuil for working in Vaudreuil rather than going straight to Montreal. But fear not that if the train is removed, there will be a much better public service offering in its place. With regards to adding more trains to Hudson, the cost of maintaining that line is quite extreme, and we would be able to get, in my view, a better service through buses than we would be. There would be more opportunity to increase the number of buses rather than increase the number of trains for a comparable price. But this is exactly the type of thing that we are evaluating with EXO. It's going very slowly, so I don't think that this will be happening anytime soon. But I thank you for your questions, and do continue to come to the mic and grow bold and grow brave, because those are excellent questions that you brought to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bonsoir. Êtes-vous un résident de Hudson?
Oui, je suis résident de Hudson.
Parfait.
C'est ma première assemblée.
C'est bien, bienvenue.
On est nouveau résident.
On ne mord pas.
Je viens vous voir ce soir. C'est un point qui est discuté à 9.2, mais je voulais profiter de l'occasion que mes voisins sont ici aujourd'hui pour pouvoir vous exposer notre problématique. Nous, on est sur Royal View. Oui. Et puis, la problématique qu'on a est beaucoup causée au manque de signalisation. Comme vous savez, vous avez fait dans les dernières années des interdictions de stationnement tout le long de Beach avec des détenteurs de permis, tout ça. Ça a beaucoup aidé, évidemment. Sauf que la problématique, c'est de passer le dernier rond-point rendu à la plage. Là, on tombe sur Royal View. Et sur Royal View, il manque de l'affichage, premièrement. Et c'est de l'affichage de no parking, tout simplement. Évidemment, il n'y a aucun problème avec ça. Pour nous, d'avoir des gens qui stationnent dans la rue, c'est normal. La problématique qu'on a, c'est que, évidemment, Royal View est un cul-de-sac. Et là, quand les gens voient que la signalisation est déficiente, évidemment, les gens qui viennent de la région ou de Hudson ou d'ailleurs veulent aller à la plage, se stationnent là. Et évidemment, il y en a qui voient qu'il y a des voitures de stationner, alors il y en a d'autres qui se lancent dans le cul-de-sac. Et là, ça crée beaucoup de trafic dans nos entrées privées jusqu'au bout du cul-de-sac. Évidemment, quand ils arrivent au bout du cul-de-sac, c'est des résidences privées. Les gens tournent dans les entrées des résidences privées. C'est devenu vraiment très problématique pour nous. Alors, on cherche une solution. Ce qu'on aimerait évidemment proposer, puis on a proposé plusieurs idées, ce serait premièrement peut-être évidemment d'avoir meilleure signalisation, d'avoir aussi peut-être une barrière physique qui pourrait peut-être être tout simplement des pylônes de béton avec des affiches défense d'entrée sur véhicules autorisés ou des choses comme ça. Mais la problématique, évidemment, c'est qu'on se retrouve avec beaucoup de trafic devant chez nous, beaucoup de pollution. Puis vous savez, Royal View, c'est une route de terre aussi. Alors, beaucoup de pollution aussi au niveau de la poussière. Les gens aussi qui viennent stationner pour la journée laissent leurs débris devant nos maisons. En tout cas, bref, c'est très problématique. J'ai mes voisins qui sont aussi ici ce soir justement pour supporter cette problématique-là. On n'est pas beaucoup, on est juste 4. Mais évidemment, on veut que ça change parce que malheureusement...
Je pense que votre demande a été reçue et de souvenir, la résolution est adressée au moins en partie.
Oui, c'est ça, c'est adressé en partie.
Je te regarde parce que tu es sur le comité de la circulation.
Au niveau de bloquer la rue, la SQ nous confirmait que ça, c'était vraiment pas possible. De bloquer la rue, entre autres, pour les véhicules d'urgence.
On ne demande pas à la bloquer.
De mettre des blocs de ciment ou quelque chose, c'est...
Non, je comprends. On ne veut pas les mettre dans le milieu de la rue. Là, on voulait vraiment juste délimiter la section. En fait, on pourrait tout simplement avoir des affiches défense d'entrée. C'est juste qu'on ne voulait pas rajouter...
C'est une rue publique.
Oui, je suis d'accord que c'est public, mais en même temps, pourquoi est-ce que les gens qui n'ont pas affaire à aller dans notre section de rue devraient rentrer puis passer dans nos entrées parce qu'ils sont dans un cul-de-sac? Je suis d'accord avec vous. Là, je ne veux pas bloquer l'accès à personne.
Nous, on vit sur un cul-de-sac, puis les gens rentrent, ils font un demi-tour, puis ils repartent. Je pense qu'on ne peut pas commencer à restreindre l'accès aux rues publiques, mais je pense qu'on a répondu en partie à votre demande, donc je vous recommande d'attendre jusqu'à la lecture de la résolution. Okay. Puis après ça, si vous avez une autre demande à faire, de la représenter au comité de circulation.
Est-ce que la signalisation va être uniformisée?
Oui, nos procédures doivent être standardisées le plus possible et pas y aller point par point. Est-ce que vous vouliez venir jusqu'au micro? Oui, c'est bon. Hello, hello. Welcome.
I am a neighbor and a Hudson resident.
Yes,
so,
good.
When you drive into Beach Road, which is a public road, there is no sign that says there's no parking for non-permits past this point. So then we're fighting an uphill battle because
I believe that's going to be addressed this
La
evening.
signalisation va être uniformisée au niveau des permis seulement d'un côté de la rue. Ça va être adressé de façon à la rendre uniforme pour toute la longueur de la rue.
So that will be addressed. Signage will be uniform all the way through.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. It's okay. We forget which language we're speaking, and it's okay.
We're okay to.
No,
that's good.
I didn't include. Sorry.
I mean, that's what we're worried about. I mean, we also have a concern with the amount of. There's only one entrance into Royal View, and there's only one way out, and we worry about the traffic being in there, and that's why it's great if you can control the parking.
Well, let's give this a try, and s'il y a d'autres mesures à prendre, vous en referez la demande. Il y aura une nouvelle analyse qui sera faite, mais on doit y appliquer. We have to apply standard review and analysis and not go spot by spot or problem by problem, because that's how we were ending up with these measures that were being used one way in one part of town for one street and differently in another, that was creating a lot of inegalities.
There's a little bit of a difference, right? The rest of the town doesn't get the traffic that we get on Beach Road and the out-of-towners that come on Beach Road. With nowhere else in Hudson do we get that kind of traffic. So it is a little bit of an emergency.
It's part of living in a beautiful part of town.
It's part of living in a beautiful part of town. Yeah.
Yes. Is that all right? Il y a une deuxième période de questions à la fin de la session, si jamais vous voulez rester jusqu'à la fin.
Non, merci, mais ce qu'on essaie de dire, c'est vraiment que présentement, si les gens pensent qu'ils peuvent venir se stationner, ça augmente beaucoup le trafic. Si les gens, comme Sophie le mentionne, pouvaient déjà, dès l'entrée sur Beach, comprendre que si vous n'avez pas de permis à partir d'ici, il n'y en a pas d'espace de stationnement. C'est vraiment
ça, c'est un bon point, Martin.
Tous les panneaux qui sont en place et qui vont être mis en place, c'est clair que c'est écrit uniquement stationnement avec permis.
Mais je pense qu'il veut dire, Benoît, c'est
à l'entrée.
À l'entrée.
On va soulever.
Il n'y aura pas de possibilité de stationnement.
Puis on comprend que les gens ont besoin d'aller là. C'est juste que les gens pensent qu'ils peuvent finir par se stationner, voient des véhicules stationnés. Fait que bref, on ne règle pas le problème. C'est ça qu'on essaie de dire.
Je pense qu'avec la proposition qui est là, on règle une partie parce que c'est déficient. Puis l'autre,
on va travailler.
Le comité pourrait l'adresser
pour à l'entrée de la rue telle quelle avec permis seulement. On va voir ce que nos amis de la SQ vont nous dire, puisqu'on va...
Parce que oui, les gens d'Hudson sont très bienvenus à Saint-Denis.
Merci beaucoup.
Ils ne vont pas à fin de semaine.
I believe one last. No, you have one? June Penny. June, can you wait till the end of... it's already 9 o'clock and we need to move forward, and I have one more question in the room. Yes, please, you ask your
Bonjour,
question.
Luc Dionne sur Birch Hill.
Oui.
Moi, je voulais juste être certain qu'à 4.2 et 4.3, refinancement des règlements d'emprunt, qu'on donne un peu plus de détails ou qu'on donne les détails. Je ne sais pas si c'était prévu, là, mais je trouve ça surprenant qu'on emprunte pour faire des choses puis qu'on en refinance. Et qu'on...
Ça arrive fréquemment parce que nos règlements, en fait, d'emprunt doivent être financés aux 5 ans, si je ne me trompe pas.
On ne fait pas des emprunts pour la durée du prêt?
Non, parce que je pense que c'est une exigence au niveau du ministère. Il faut les refinancer à chaque 5 ans.
Le taux d'intérêt change un peu comme nos maisons. On emprunte pour un terme de 5 ans. Après 5 ans, on renégocie le taux d'intérêt.
Il y a plusieurs villes qui empruntent pour 20 ans puis qui émettent des obligations pour 20 ans.
Leurs projets sont financés sur une période prolongée. Comme les rues, c'est 15 ans. Les bâtiments, ça peut être plus. Mais le montant comme tel est refinancé.
Pour 5 ans.
Oui, je comprends qu'il y a une hypothèque personnelle, mais il y a plusieurs villes qui vont émettre des obligations pour 20 ans et qui vont avoir un préfixe. Parce que là, les taux d'intérêt ont été très bas, mais maintenant, les taux d'intérêt montent.
Pas dans mon expérience, pas dans celle de Martin non plus.
Probablement les grandes villes qui ont le moyen, mais pour avoir travaillé dans des villes entre 0 et 50, là, j'ai pas vu ça. Peut-être Montréal, effectivement, Trois-Rivières est capable d'émettre, probablement, puis ça sont assez gros des obligations, mais on voit pas ça dans les villes de 5 000 de population.
Merci. That's good. She's still there? Okay. June, quickly. One last question. It's 9 o'clock.
I expect you to get back to me. Yeah, I need clarification about what the current status is for parking on Royal View.
I believe it's parking on one side of Royal View from the first entrance of Sandy Beach all the way to the last entrance of Sandy Beach, and we will be improving signage as there is none from, I believe, the second turnabout to the third turnabout, so we will be correcting that omission.
So if someone wants to go to the beach at lunchtime, for instance, for me, I could go and park there with my permit?
With your permit, as long as you're on the right side of whichever side of the street it is, and there is room, yes.
That's good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, quickly moving on. Thank you. That was, how long? 55 minutes?
Perfect.
Huh?
C'est parfait.
45 minutes?
1 heure.
On répond à nos clients, M. Doug Smith, c'est nos clients.
C'est bon. Section 3, Urban Planning and Environment. I will step back from the table and Darren will carry.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Please let the record show that the mayor has recused herself. Article 3.1 of tonight's agenda. 514 Main, SPAPE, new multifamily construction. Whereas the owners of the lot located at 514 Main want to demolish the existing house in order to build a new mixed building of 18 residential units and 1 commercial unit. Whereas the demolition request to come will be subject to the demolition committee's decision. Whereas a SPAPE approbation request was received for a preliminary program for the utilization of the vacant land at 514 Main. Whereas the Town Planning Advisory Committee's unanimous recommendation to refuse the SPAPE based on the following criteria to reflect the architecture of the following requirements are the criteria. So to reflect the architecture of neighboring heritage buildings, to prioritize neat and detailed architectural facades, to avoid large uniform walls using divisions in the various facade plans by insetting or projecting architectural components, to prioritize durable construction techniques, to landscape open areas located in the side and rear yards, to use perennials, shrubs, trees, and other indigenous landscaping components, to limit excavation and backfilling operations, to favor a rural or country architectural character with high-pitched roofs and exterior siding materials to be in harmony with neighboring buildings and the environment, to ensure that architectural elements respect the architectural character of the building, to ensure that exterior finished materials are in harmony with the architecture of the building and that their number be reduced to a minimum, to ensure that landscaping and elements such as fences and signs highlight the building and contribute in increasing the quality of the rural landscape. Skip. The proposal in front of us tonight is to refuse a SPAPE SPAPE request for 514 Main. Before we take the vote, I'll ask Mrs. Legault to read in French.
Yes. 3.1 514 PIA pour une nouvelle construction multifamiliale. Donc, les propriétaires du 514 Main désirent démolir la maison existante dans le but de construire une nouvelle construction mixte qui serait composée de 18 unités résidentielles et d'1 unité commerciale. La demande de démolition qui sera à venir est assujettie à la décision du comité de démolition, mais une demande d'approbation en PIA doit être reçue pour le programme de réutilisation du sol dégagé au préalable. Donc, la recommandation du comité consultatif d'urbanisme est de refuser la demande de permis en PIA, compte tenu que les critères suivants ne sont pas rencontrés. Donc, un rappel de l'architecture et des bâtiments avoisinants ayant une valeur patrimoniale, privilégier des façades qui font l'objet d'un traitement architectural minutieux et soigné, éviter les grands murs uniformes en proposant des ruptures dans les plans des différentes façades et par l'ajout d'éléments architecturaux en retrait ou en saillie, Privilégier les techniques de construction durable, intégrer des aménagements paysagers dans les espaces libres situés dans les cours latérales et arrière, choisir des vivaces, arbustes, arbres et autres composantes paysagères indigènes, limiter les opérations de déblayage et de remblayage, favoriser une architecture à caractère rural ou de villégiature avec des toits à forte pente et des matériaux de revêtement de façon à être en harmonie avec les bâtiments et le secteur environnant, assurer que les éléments architecturaux respectent le caractère architectural du bâtiment, assurer que les matériaux de revêtement extérieur cadrent bien avec l'architecture du bâtiment et que leur nombre soit réduit au minimum, et assurer que les aménagements paysagers et les éléments tels que les clôtures et les enseignes mettent en valeur le bâtiment et contribuent à rehausser la qualité du paysage champêtre. Donc, la résolution devant le Conseil est de refuser le PIA pour le programme de réutilisation du sol dégagé au 514 Main.
Do I have a proposer for this refusal? District 1, do I have a seconder? District 3. Is there anybody opposed to this proposition? Raise your hand. It is unanimous. Please let the record show Mayor Hutchison returns to her seat as chairperson at 9:10 p.m.
Thank you, Darren.
Leave you the shorter ones in the future.
Yes, I will. Did you want to speak, or how's your voice? You're good? All right. Typically, Peter will read these as he's the president of the Town Planning Advisory Committee, but he has a sore throat this evening, so I will read through them. Item 3.2, 894 Main, SPAPE for a new detached single-family construction. Whereas a permit request for a new detached single-family construction was received for 894 Main, whereas the recommendations of the Town Planning Advisory Committee by majority was to approve the proposal. This resolution is to approve the SPAPE request. En français.
3.2, 894 Main, PIA pour une nouvelle construction unifamiliale. Donc, c'est une demande de permis en ce sens qui a été reçue pour le 894 Main. La recommandation du CCU est majoritaire à l'effet d'approuver le PIA et la résolution devant le Conseil vise également à approuver la demande de permis.
Do I have a mover for this? Peter Mate, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this? It is carried by majority. Ça va? Item 3.3, 69 Crescent, minor exemption. Whereas a minor exemption request was received for the property located at 69 Crescent to allow a front setback for the existing garage of 3.11 meters instead of the required minimum of 7 meters, and a front setback for the proposed addition of 6.41 meters instead of the required minimum of 7 meters. Whereas the Town Planning Advisory Committee's unanimous recommendation was to approve, and in accordance with the regulation in force, interested parties in this proceeding are invited to be heard by council. So if there's anyone in this room that would like to stand at this point and speak to the request, you're welcome to come to the microphone. Otherwise, this resolution, since no one has shown an interest in being heard by council, this resolution is to approve the request for a minor exemption.
3.3, 69 Crescent pour une dérogation mineure. Donc, une demande en ce sens a été reçue afin d'autoriser une marge de recul avant de 3,11 mètres pour le garage existant au lieu du minimum de 7 mètres requis et une marge de recul avant de 6,41 mètres pour l'agrandissement proposé au lieu du 7 mètres requis, encore une fois. La recommandation du CCU est unanime à l'effet d'approuver la demande de dérogation mineure. Conformément à la réglementation en vigueur, si des personnes présentes et intéressées voulaient se faire entendre par le Conseil, ce serait l'occasion de le faire, donc de se présenter au micro. Autrement, le Conseil votera sur la résolution pour approuver la demande de dérogation mineure.
Is there anyone online who would like to be heard, Laura? No? In the room? No? All right, I will need a mover. Darren Legault moving, seconded by Mark Correa. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. For the same address, item 3.4, this is for the SPAPE edition. So where the first one was really to regularize the setbacks for this property, this second point is for the look and feel of this addition. So whereas a permit request for the addition at this property, so 69 Crescent, where the Town Planning Advisory Committee's recommendation by majority is to refuse the SPAPE, because the criterion aiming to comply with the building's specific architectural characteristics during the work, along with its specific and overall characteristics, such as roof shape, exterior cladding material, facade composition, architectural components, is not fulfilled. This resolution is to refuse the SPAPE request.
69 Crescent. Donc, cette fois-ci, c'est pour approuver les plans et l'architecture de l'agrandissement. Donc, la demande de permis a été reçue et étudiée par le CCU, dont la recommandation majoritaire est de refuser le PIA, compte tenu que le critère d'évaluation visant à respecter lors d'intervention les caractéristiques propres à l'architecture du bâtiment ainsi que ses caractéristiques particulière et d'ensemble n'est pas remplie. La résolution vise à refuser le PIA pour la demande de permis au 69 Crescent.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Peter Mate, seconded by Benoit Blais. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. So to provide some precisions on this file, in connecting the main house to the garage, the causeway or breezeway was enclosed in continuation of the house, but the main door, the existing entrance, has now been moved to much closer and basically is hidden by the garage that stands in front. So when you look at it from the street, it's hard to know where the entrance, and it dénaturalisé, so it just deconstructs or takes away from the facades. So the recommendation would be to look to bring better balance with where is the main entrance, even if you know that the main entrance will end up being the garage. You know, it's not a big fix, it's not major, but when you read the drawing, it looks more like it's a side elevation rather than a main elevation. Is that correct? Yes. All right, je pense qu'on avait voté. Oui, c'est bon. Item 3.5, Environment Committee nomination updates. Did you want to read the resolution, Mark? Yeah, sure.
Councillor Mark Craig is acting as president, and Councillor Darren Legault is acting as vice president of the Environment Committee, whereas it is necessary to update the list of resident members and resource persons to appoint the following residents as members of the Environment Committee. There's no actual change. It's just a couple of members are resources that we can use to help us out with certain aspects of our work, but the actual members of the group aren't changing. So Kevin Soleric, David Callant, Wendy Dollinger, Marina Johnston, Diane Martineau, Julie Gideon, Chantal Saint Laurent, Loretta Berg, and Jeff Cardle, and to appoint the following members as resource persons to the Environment Committee: Adrian Michael and Joanie Gagnon.
3.5, mise à jour des nominations au comité en environnement. Donc, considérant que le conseiller Mark Gray agit à titre de président et que le conseiller Darren Legault agit à titre de vice-président de ce comité, et qu'il y a lieu de mettre à jour la liste des membres résidents et des personnes ressources, la résolution vise à nommer les résidents suivants à titre de membres, soit Kevin Solaric, David Callant, Wendy Dolliger, Marina Johnston, Diane Martineau, Julie Gédéon, Chantal Saint-Laurent, Loretta Berg, Jeff Carlyle, et de nommer les personnes suivantes à titre de personnes ressources, soit Adrien Michel et Joanie Gagnon.
Moved by Peter Mate, seconded by Darren Legault. And are there any objections to the resolution? Carried unanimously.
Very nice. Next one.
Carry on. So the ad hoc conservation working group, CWG nomination updates. So whereas Councillor Mark Gray, as acting as president, and Councillor Doug Smith is acting as vice president of the CWG, whereas necessary to update the list of resident members and resource persons to appoint the following residents as members of the ad hoc conservation working group. This is also an update, just an updating of the list. Members are Donald Atwood, David Callant, Brian E. Laylor, Kevin Soleric, Brian Grubert, and Kirsten Bowser, to appoint the following persons as resource persons to the ad hoc conservation working group, CWG, Tanya Burns and Lorraine Kechel.
3.6, mise à jour des nominations au comité ad hoc chargé à la conservation. Donc, le conseiller Mark Gray agit à titre de président et le conseiller Douglas Smith agit à titre de vice-président du comité. Et il y a lieu de mettre à jour la liste des membres et des personnes ressources. Donc, la résolution vise à nommer les résidents suivants à titre de membres, soit Donald Atwood, David Callant, Brianny Laylor, Kevin Solaric, Brian Grubert et Kirsten Bowser, et de nommer les personnes suivantes à titre de personnes ressources, soit Tanya Burns et Lorraine Caron.
Thank you. And it is moved by Doug Smith, and seconded by, I'll go Peter Mate. Are there any objections to the resolution? Carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mark. Moving to item 3.7, authorization to pay special branch collection, considering the ice storm which occurred on April 5th and 6th of 2023, whereas the extent of the damages caused by the ice storm required a special branch and log collection. This resolution is to approve the awarding of the contracts and the following expenses. So there were three contractors that were hired. First was Émondage Village for $40,000. The second, J. Poirier Excavation, Inc., for $38,937.50, and Maintenance Malone for $35,000.
Suivant paragraphes à la demande de Martin.
Tu veux que je lise? Oui. And the funds received, that one? And these expenses be financed?
Oui.
Okay. And these expenses be financed from the unallocated surplus and subject to the General Indemnity and Financial Assistance Program regarding actual or imminent disasters. So that's the PGIAF, and that any funds received as reimbursements under the PGIAF program be used to replenish the unallocated surplus.
3.7, autorisation de paiement pour la collecte de branches spéciales. Donc, considérant la tempête du verglas survenue les 5 et 6 avril dernier et que l'étendue des dommages causés par la tempête a nécessité une collecte spéciale de branches et de bûches, la résolution vise à approuver l'octroi des contrats et d'approuver les dépenses suivantes. Donc, 3 contrats à 3 compagnies différentes ont été octroyés. La première à Émondage Village au montant de 40 000 avant taxes. Ensuite, J. Poirier Excavation, Inc. pour 38 937,50 plus taxes et Maintenance Malone pour 35 000 plus taxes. Et également, c'est des dépenses qui seront financées par le surplus non affecté, mais ensuite soumises au programme général d'indemnisation et d'aide financière lors des sinistres, donc un programme provincial. Et les fonds qui seront reçus en remboursement dans le cadre du programme seront utilisés pour renflouer à nouveau le surplus non affecté.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Peter Mate, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? It is carried unanimously. So, merci Martin d'avoir été proactif, because this process only took 12 days to pick up all the branches and logs, and we know that some of our neighbors are still struggling in picking up a lot of the debris, so thank you for clearing that up rapidly. Item 3.8, pilot project for temporary terraces on public property. Whereas in previous years, temporary approval was granted to restaurant owners, allowing them to set up temporary terraces on public property due to special circumstances arising during the pandemic. Whereas Council wishes to carry out a pilot project with regards to the setting up of temporary terraces on public property in a controlled manner, this resolution is to initiate a pilot project for 2023 with regards to the setting up of temporary terraces on public domain, that a permit be required for any temporary terrace on the public domain and issued within 15 days of the presentation of the required documents, and upon payment of the fees imposed according to the $85 per square meter calculation, where details of the conditions set by Council by this resolution may be communicated to those interested upon request for information. And that is it. It's a very long resolution, but thank you, Melissa, for only highlighting part of it.
3.8, projet pilote d'occupation du domaine public par des terrasses temporaires. Donc, considérant les permissions temporaires qui ont été données aux restaurateurs par les années passées dans le contexte particulier entraîné par la COVID, qui permettait l'aménagement de terrasses temporaires sur le domaine public. Considérant que le Conseil désire faire l'essai d'un projet pilote qui vise à encadrer cette occupation du domaine public, la résolution vise à lancer le projet pilote pour l'année 2023 qui vise les terrasses temporaires sur le domaine public sur l'octroi d'un permis qui sera émis suivant la présentation des documents requis et sur acquittement des frais imposés. Et le calcul est de 85 $ par mètre carré d'occupation. Tous les détails des conditions établies par le Conseil par cette résolution peuvent être communiqués aux personnes intéressées sur demande d'information.
Merci. Do I have a mover for this resolution? Peter Mate, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? I see one. It is carried by majority. You may remember that this terraces have been, as I've explained, part of the I see it. Merci. Stéphane. C'est ça? Stéphane, j'ai réussi. That this had been, as I'd explained at the beginning, a temporary measure put in place during the pandemic, and we'd received a certain amount of pressure from some merchants along Cameron, mostly, but also in looking for fairness by adding that tariff per square footage, where the fund will go into a reserved fund for commercial development specifically. Also, we feel that the safety concern was raised and brought to the agenda of the Circulation Committee and discussed with the SQ, who recommended that we keep the measures that had been put in place originally with putting the bollards or the concrete stoppers at the corners of the terraces will provide some safety measures, but also in terms of look and feel, we had already made some improvements over the years and will continue in this sense. So it is a pilot project. We continue to receive pros and cons comments on this, but the idea is to provide any opportunity for merchants to best promote their wares and to continually improve the animation along our public streets. Did you want to add anything, anyone? No. All right. Le vote a eu lieu, hein? Oui. Item 3.9, tabling of the monthly reports for permits issued in April of 2023. So members of council take note of the tabling of the monthly report for permits issued by the Urban Planning Department. Section 4 on administration and finance, item 4.1, approval of disbursements for May of 2023. Whereas Council has examined the disbursements made and to be made for accounts payable as of May 26, this resolution is to approve the following disbursements as of that date, where the subtotal of payments is $1,738,694.38 for a total of accounts paid of $2,129,596.97. This includes 3 payrolls.
4.1, approbation des paiements pour le mois de mai. La résolution vise à approuver le paiement des comptes en date du 26 mai dernier pour un sous-total des paiements à 1 738 694,38 $, montant auquel on ajoute 3 périodes de paye pour un total de 2 129 596,97 $.
Darren?
Yeah, point of clarification just before we vote on this. The number's pretty big for this month, so I skimmed through pretty quickly. We do have the payment for the Code Paul to the MRC, Vaudreuil-Soulanges, $219,412. The other big one that jumped out is Service de la Sûreté de Québec, Ministère des Finances of $913,985. So those are significant payments. And there was also one for the garbage, $124,498. So significant payments this month.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you for underscoring those. Do I have a mover? Benoit Blais, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 4.2, I forget his name. Refinancing loan bylaws 505, 504, 755-2022, and 735-2020 adjudication. Whereas the Town of Hudson would like to issue bonds, specifically a bond with a due date as per bylaw number 505, the ones I just named, 505, 504, 755-2022, and 735-2020. Whereas pursuant to this public tender procedure for the issuance of the aforementioned bonds, the Town of Hudson received 4 complying bids, which are listed here. Whereas the calculation result of the actual cost, the offer from Financière Banque Nationale Inc. was deemed to be the most beneficial, with the real cost of interest over 5 years at 4.68050%. And this resolution is that the issuance of bonds in the amount of $3,179,000 from the Town of Hudson be awarded to Financière Banque Nationale Inc.
4.2, refinancement des règlements d'emprunt 505, 504, 755 et 735, adjudication. Donc, considérant que, conformément à ces règlements d'emprunt, la Ville de Hudson souhaite émettre une série d'obligations, soit une obligation par échéance, considérant qu'à la suite de l'appel d'offres public pour la vente de l'émission désignée ci-dessous, le ministère des Finances a reçu 4 soumissions conformes. Considérant que le résultat du calcul des coûts réels indique que la soumission présentée par la firme financière Banque Nationale Inc. est la plus avantageuse, avec un coût réel d'intérêt sur 5 ans de 4,68050 %. La résolution vise à ce que l'émission d'obligations au montant de 3 179 000 soit adjugée à la firme financière Banque Nationale Inc.
Entre les deux versions, dans le considérant au-dessus de la page 137, en anglais, c'est écrit « The Town of Hudson received 4 complying bids » et en français, c'est le ministère des Finances.
Ah oui. En fait, c'est le ministère des Finances qui lance l'appel d'offres, donc qui a reçu, mais en notre nom.
OK, parfait. Donc, juste à faire la correction. Do I have a mover for this resolution? Peter Mate, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. If there are none, it is carried unanimously. Item 4.3, refinancing loan bylaws. 505, 504, 755-2022, and 735-2022, 2020 agreement. Whereas the Town of Hudson would like to issue on a series of bonds, 1 bond per term in the amount of $3,179,000 to be realized on June 15th of 2023, broken down as follows, and it breaks it down per those 5 loan bylaws. Whereas in accordance with the first paragraph of Section 2 of the Municipal Loans and Debts Act, for the purpose of the bond issue, the the Town of Hudson wishes to issue a shorter term than that originally set out in the aforementioned bylaws. And this resolution is that the loan bylaw be financed by bonds, and that the term provided for in loan bylaw 505, 504, 755-2022 and 735-2020 be issued for a shorter term than the term provided for in the loan bylaws, that is a term of 5 years, and that given the June 15th, 2023 bond issue, the original term of borrowing bylaw numbers 505, 504, is it just the two?
Yes.
Parce que tu as deux fois les mêmes chiffres. Tu as deux fois 505.
Yes, okay. Because there's split accounts or split bonds. I don't know why, but it shows.
Okay, so we have twice borrowing bylaws number 505, 505, and 504. Be extended by 3 days.
Yes.
OK. C'est bon. Je te laisse le lire en français.
4.3, refinancement des règlements d'emprunt 505, 504, 755 et 735. Donc, considérant que la Ville de Hudson souhaite émettre une série d'obligations, soit une obligation par échéance, pour un montant total de 3 179 000 qui sera réalisé le 15 juin, réparti comme suit. Donc, le règlement 505 est divisé en 2 montants spécifiques chacun. Donc, 505 pour un 56 200 et 505 pour un 1 680 700. Règlement 504 pour 163 100. Règlement 755 pour 766 000 et règlement 735 pour 513 000. Considérant que, conformément au premier alinéa de l'article 2 de la loi sur les dettes et emprunts municipaux, pour les fins de cette émission d'obligations, la Ville souhaite émettre pour un terme plus court que celui originellement fixé à ces règlements. La résolution de ce soir vise à ce que les règlements d'emprunt soient financés par obligation, que le terme prévu dans les règlements d'emprunt déjà mentionné soit plus court que celui originellement fixé, c'est-à-dire pour un terme de 5 ans, et que, compte tenu que l'emprunt par obligation du 15 juin est au 15 juin et que le terme des règlements d'emprunt est le 12 juin pour les règlements 505, 505 et 504, on veut le prolonger de 3 jours.
Darren was explaining to me that 505 had been split because you have sewage underground, and the other must be the building?
Part of it was sectoral, and part of it was public in general. Okay. That's how we got rid of that note on the management letters.
Okay. So this is bylaws that were adopted in 2007 or 2009.
That's why I'm here.
Yes, the reason why Darren presented himself years and years, decades ago. All right. Merci beaucoup, Melissa. Do I have a mover for this lovely resolution? Darren. Seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. So this is really administrative tidying up from years of shifting. And as Darren brought up, 505, 504 are 2 bylaws that date back to when we used to have notes on our audited financial statements where those bylaws were affected to the whole, but not all could benefit from the services that they were incurring. So this was regularized in the last council term, and this is why the gymnastics, I know it sounds a little complicated, but this was all done and approved by the ministry. So every so often it rears its little head up, and we have to keep reminding ourselves why we did those gymnastics. All right, Section 5, Town Clerk, Item 5.1, Intermunicipal Agreement for Water Supply with Town of Rigaud, whereas in 2005, the Town of Hudson and the Town of Rigaud entered into an intermunicipal agreement for the supply of potable water for certain Hudson properties served by the Town of Rigaud's La Raquette system. Whereas the Town of Rigaud and the Town of Hudson wish to mutually agree to update the agreement to include the mandatory terms and conditions. This resolution is to authorize the Town Clerk to sign the said agreement and all other documents required to execute and give effect to this resolution. en français.
5.1, entente intermunicipale pour des services d'aqueduc avec la Ville de Rigaud. Donc, en 2005, la Ville de Hudson et la Ville de Rigaud ont conclu une entente intermunicipale qui vise l'alimentation en eau potable de certaines propriétés d'Hudson qui sont desservies par le réseau La Raquette de la Ville de Rigaud. Cette entente est toujours en vigueur. On souhaite simplement, d'un commun accord, mettre à jour l'entente pour prévoir des modalités obligatoires par la loi qui n'y étaient pas présentes. Donc, la résolution vise à m'autoriser, à titre de greffière, à signer l'entente et tout autre document requis pour exécuter et donner plein effet à cette résolution.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Peter Mate, seconded by Mark Gray. Thank you. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. So this was essentially Rigaud that approached Hudson and asked to update the agreement as they had administratively improved their agreement and just wanted to update it. So again, just more administration. Item 5.2, out-of-court settlement, Quebec Court File 760-22-01278-217. Whereas the action taken by a Hudson resident involving the town of Vaudreuil-Soulanges and the town of Hudson concerning emergency work carried out in January of 2021 on a water main located on his property, whereas council deemed it appropriate to settle this action by way of a tripartite agreement, this resolution is to accept the out-of-court settlement agreement resolving the dispute whereby the town assumes a payment of $5,000 and the cost of establishing a maintenance easement, so that is a servitude.
5.2, règlement hors cours, dossier de cour à la Cour du Québec avec un certain numéro. Considérant le recours entrepris par un résident d'Hudson impliquant la Ville de Vaudreuil-Dorion et la Ville d'Hudson pour des travaux d'urgence qui avaient été exécutés en janvier 2021 sur une conduite d'aqueduc qui était localisée sur le terrain du résident. Considérant que le Conseil juge opportun de régler le présent recours dans le cadre d'une entente tripartite, la résolution vise à accepter l'entente de règlement hors cours mettant fin au litige par laquelle la Ville assume un versement de 5 000 $ ainsi que les frais d'établissement d'une servitude d'entretien.
Do I have a mover for this resolution? Benoit Blais, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 5.3, support to the Town of St. Lazare, Bylaw 1153, replacing Bylaw 785 concerning truck and tool vehicles. So it's an odd title, but this is the title of the Bylaw of St. Lazare, so we will keep it as such. Considering that the town of St. Lazare is in the process of adopting a bylaw concerning trucks and tool vehicles, whereas the draft bylaw submitted by town of St. Lazare will have no negative impact on the municipal road network, this resolution is to support the town of St. Lazare's initiative to adopt bylaw 1153.
5.3, appui à la Ville de Saint-Lazare relativement à son règlement numéro 1153, remplaçant le règlement 785 relatif à la circulation des camions et des véhicules outils. Donc, la Ville de Saint-Lazare est en processus d'adoption d'un règlement à ce sujet et le soumis à la Ville d'Hudson pour obtenir son appui dans le cadre de l'approbation qu'il doit recevoir du ministère des Transports. Et c'est un projet de règlement qui n'aura pas d'impact négatif sur le réseau routier municipal à Hudson. Donc, la résolution vise à appuyer la démarche d'adoption du règlement 1153 entamé par la Ville de Saint-Lazare.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Benoit Blais, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 6, Human Resources, Item 6.1, Movement of Personnel. This is for the appointment of a reception and perception agent, whereas a posting was published from December 2022 to February 2023, and that an employee of the town has indicated their intention to fill this position, whereas the employee's trial period began on May 8th of 2023 and ends on June 5th of 2023, and the employee meets the normal requirements of the job, this resolution is to appoint Ms. Katinka Rubin Michaud to the position of Reception and Perception Agent, Function 114, full-time unionized position, and that the appointment be effective retroactively as of May 8th of 2023.
6.1, mouvement de personnel, nomination d'un agent de perception. Considérant qu'un affichage a eu lieu de décembre 2022 à février 2023 et que l'employé 10-16 a fait part de son intention de combler le poste, considérant que l'employé a débuté sa période d'essai le 8 mai dernier et que la période se termine le 5 juin aujourd'hui, et l'employé satisfait les exigences normales de la tâche, la résolution vise à nommer Mme Katinka Rubin Michaud au titre d'agent d'accueil et perception, fonction 114, qui est un poste syndiqué à temps plein, et que cette nomination soit effective rétroactivement au 8 mai.
Merci. Do I have a proposer? Darren Legault, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. So welcome Katinka to Town Hall. So she's migrating from this building to the next, and as far as I've heard, she's doing a fabulous job at the reception, and she's a delight to work with, which means now we're also looking for a hall monitor, correct? One or two, probably. So if anyone's interested, there are postings on our town website. Ou plus? Plus que deux?
Vous allez nous chercher de la main-d'œuvre.
Oui, on va aller chercher de la main-d'œuvre, surtout en environnement. Surtout en environnement. All right. Moving to section 7, culture and recreation. Item 7.1, grant agreement, Celebrate Canada program, whereas Heritage Canada provides for grants to subsidize the 2023 Canada Day festivities, whereas the grant offered is in the amount of $9,000, whereas the confirmation of the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, so MAMASH, that the exclusion of Decree 1520-2021 is required. This resolution is that the Town of Hudson is seeking authorization from the Government of Quebec to conclude the grant agreement and to authorize the signature of the grant agreement with the Government of Canada.
7.1, accord de subvention, programme Le Canada en fête. Considérant que Patrimoine Canada prévoit des subventions pour financer les festivités de la Fête du Canada 2023, considérant que la subvention offerte est d'un montant de 9 000 $, considérant que la confirmation du ministère des Affaires municipales et de l'Habitation est requise au sujet de l'exclusion du décret 1520 de 2021, la résolution vise à ce que la Ville de Hudson demande au gouvernement du Québec l'autorisation de conclure un accord de subvention avec le gouvernement du Canada et d'autoriser la signature de l'accord de subvention avec le gouvernement du Canada pour le programme Le Canada en fête.
Merci. Darren Legault proposes, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 7.2, Canada Day 2023, whereas the Canada Day festivities will be held at Jack Layton Park on Saturday, July 1st from 6 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., and that entertainment, music, and food are planned. This resolution is to authorize the closure of the Jack Layton Park parking lot from 7 a.m. to midnight on July 1st and the closure of the boat ramp all day on July 1st, and to approve a maximum expense of $28,746.65 before taxes.
7.2, Fête du Canada. Considérant que les festivités de la Fête du Canada se tiendront au parc Jack Layton le samedi 1er juillet de 18h à 22h30 et que l'animation de la musique et de la nourriture y sont prévues, la résolution vise à autoriser la fermeture du stationnement du parc Jack Layton de 7 à minuit le 1er juillet et la fermeture de la descente à bateau toute la journée le 1er juillet, et également d'approuver une dépense maximale de 28 746 avant taxes.
Do we have a mover? Mark Gray, seconded by Doug Smith. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. So, fun fact, or maybe not so fun fact, but Peter Schiffke was mentioning that there are fewer and fewer municipalities that are holding Canada Day events in the province of Quebec, and fewer municipalities carrying the Canadian flag as well. So he thanks us for holding this event, and it gives him a place to go, and his teammates, how do we call them? His colleagues are jealous. So maybe we should just invite them all to come here since we're going to have a good day. Anyway, we voted on this. Moving to item 7.3, authorization PRIMA, which stands for Programme d'infrastructure municipale pour les aînés, application for financial assistance. Whereas council wishes the youth center, there's a bit of a contrast there, whereas the council wishes the youth center to meet the criteria of universal accessibility. So the youth center is the basement here that also serves for the 55+ hub, whereas the town of Hudson is eligible to apply for the Programme d'infrastructure municipale pour les aînés PRIMA funding. This resolution is to authorize the submission of a request for financial assistance to PRIMA to finance the work for the universal accessibility of the youth center work that will democratize access to recreation for seniors held by the Spot 55+.
7.3, autorisation, dépôt d'une demande d'aide financière au programme d'infrastructure municipale pour les aînés, donc le PRIMA. Considérant que le Conseil souhaite que le Centre jeunesse respecte les critères de l'accessibilité universelle, considérant que la Ville est éligible à la demande de financement du programme d'infrastructure PRIMA, la résolution vise à autoriser le dépôt d'une demande d'aide financière à PRIMA pour financer les travaux pour l'accessibilité universelle du Centre jeunesse, travaux qui démocratiseront, entre autres, l'accès aux loisirs pour les aînés qui sont tenus par le Spot 55+.
So this is for an exterior elevating platform? No. A ramp. We're doing a ramp. Okay, this is good. We'll hear more about it in the future, I am sure. Un petit changement? C'est bon. Do I have a mover for this? Benoit Blais, seconded by Peter Mate. Sorry. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. So again, this is just for the subsidy. There are no plans for it per se. I haven't seen any design or anything, but it will be coming. Oui, ça s'en vient? It's coming soon.
C'est sur la table à dessin.
C'est bien. And there has been quite a few number of people asking for better access to the basement, which is a nice space, and where now twice a week the 55+ hub meets. And also when we have emergency measures here, it's important to have places where everyone has access. So, merci beaucoup, Martin. Now I know why Joseph Elettre is in the room. Item 7.4, 2023 Hudson Auto Show, use of Town Hall and Selkirk parking lots. Sorry for making you wait so long. Whereas the Hudson Auto Show will take place on Saturday, August 12th of 2023, whereas organizers have requested that parking spaces be made available for participating vehicles. This resolution is to approve the use of the Town Hall parking lot and a portion of the Selkirk parking lot on August 12th of 2023, to approve the installation of no parking signs along Cameron between Main Road and Saint-Jean, along Main Road from Cedar to McNaughton, and in the two parking lots perpendicular to McNaughton on the evening of Friday, August 11th. 2023, and I see a nod from across the room. En français.
7.4, exposition d'auto Hudson 2023, utilisation du stationnement de l'hôtel de ville et de la rue Selkirk. Donc, considérant que l'exposition d'auto Hudson aura lieu le samedi 12 août prochain, et que les organisateurs ont demandé des espaces de stationnement qui soient mis à la disposition des véhicules participants, la résolution vise à approuver l'utilisation du stationnement de l'hôtel de ville et une partie du stationnement de la rue Selkirk la journée du 12 août prochain. et d'approuver l'installation de panneaux d'interdiction de stationner le long de la rue Cameron, entre la rue Main et la rue Saint-Jean, le long de la rue Main entre Cedar et McNaughton, et dans les 2 aires de stationnement perpendiculaires à la rue McNaughton dans la soirée du vendredi 11 août.
Do I have a mover? Darren Legault, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Joseph. Thank you, and may the event be another success this year. Anyway, thank you for organizing this. You're now released. It's past our bedtime soon. Item 7.5, grant to Cavagnal Scouts. Whereas the Cavagnal Scouts submitted an application for a town grant on April 26th of 2023, this resolution is to approve a sum of $1,000 to be dispersed to the Cavagnal Scouts.
7.5, subvention aux scouts Cavagnal. Considérant que les scouts de Cavagnal ont soumis une demande de subvention le 26 avril dernier, la résolution vise à approuver le versement d'une somme de $1,000 aux scouts Cavagnal.
Do I have a mover? Benoit Blais, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 8, Public Works. Item 8.1, awarding of contract by mutual agreement for Selkirk Street geotechnical study. Whereas Resolution R 2023-03-61 approved an amendment to contract AO-2021-09-TP for the plans and specifications for the redevelopment of Lakeview Street to include the design of plans for the replacement of Selkirk Street drainage. Whereas a geotechnical study is required for the preparation of the technical study to complete the plans and specifications, this resolution is to award a contract by mutual agreement to Sol Nord Environnement, Inc. for the geotechnical study of Selkirk Street in the amount of $21,000.
8.1, octroi de contrat de gré à gré, études géotechniques rue Selkirk. Donc, considérant que par résolution, récemment, la Ville a octroyé une modification au contrat qui avait été approuvé pour les plans et devis dans le cadre du réaménagement de la rue Lakeview pour y inclure la conception des plans de remplacement du drainage de la rue Selkirk, considérant qu'une étude géotechnique s'avère nécessaire pour la préparation de l'étude technique qui complétera les plans et devis, la résolution vise à octroyer un contrat de gré à gré à Sol Nord Environnement, Inc. afin de mener une étude géotechnique de la rue Selkirk pour la somme de $21,000 avant taxes.
Merci. Do I have a proposer? Mark Gray, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 8.2, awarding of contract by mutual agreement for odor control for the sanitary network, considering the foul odor complaints received from the residents of Como Gardens Street. This resolution is to award a contract by mutual agreement for the odor control of the sanitary network to Evoca Water Technologies Limited in the amount of $16,901.33 before taxes.
8.2, octroi de contrat de gré à gré réseau sanitaire anti-odeur. Considérant la réception de plaintes provenant de résidents de la rue Como Gardens pour des odeurs nauséabondes, la résolution vise à octroyer un contrat de gré à gré visant le contrôle des odeurs du réseau sanitaire à l'entreprise Evoca Technologies des eaux limitées pour un montant de $16,901,33 avant taxes.
Merci. Mover? Benoit Blais, seconded. Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. So perhaps just rapidly, the distance between Como Gardens and the next pumping station is very long. And so in the summer in hot temperatures, it takes longer for excrements and other to circulate. And so this is for the addition of material that will slow down decomposition. And also I believe that they're using some pumps to stir or to rapidify, to agitate. So this should address the ongoing issues or complaints that we've had for, as far as I remember, at least 5-6 years, but probably since the inception of this system. So it will be a relief to Como Garden residents and Benoit Blaise residents. There's some smell in my area because it turns right at my driveway, but that's okay. I was not one of the complainants, but.
Talk to your counselor.
Talk to my counselor, yeah, I do. Hi. Thank you.
Complaint to the mayor.
All right, so thank you for getting this done, Martin, again. Item 8.3, authorization to use the wharf for work related to the new Ile aux Tourtes Bridge. Whereas the general contractor, Roxborough Excavation, Inc., has been awarded by the government the contract for the new Ile aux Tourtes Bridge, whereas Roxborough Excavation, Inc. requires access to the Lake of Two Mountains, whereas Roxborough Excavation, Inc. is offering to the town in exchange for the access to the wharf to perform securitizing work on the wharf based on securitizing work on the wharf based on a structural study to be carried out by Roxborough at its own expense beforehand. This resolution is that following the results of a structural study of the wharf that demonstrates that the wharf structure is able to support the weight of the equipment, Council authorizes Roxborough Excavation, Inc. the following from June 2023 until the end of 2024, that Roxborough Excavation, Inc. is authorized to use the wharf for access to the Lake of Two Mountains, to authorize the closure of Wharf Street on no more than 5 occasions, and to authorize the use of a portion of the snow dump to pre-assemble some equipment, and that in exchange for the authorization granted by the town, Roxborough Excavation, Inc. will perform rehabilitation work on the northwest corner of the wharf at their cost. There was some concern when we looked at this file at caucus that the appropriate measures in terms of environment conformity need, of course, to be met. So this will go along with the permits that they need to obtain as well.
8.3, autorisation d'utilisation du quai dans le cadre de travaux reliés au nouveau pont de l'île aux Tourtes. Donc, l'entrepreneur général Roxborough Excavation Inc. s'est vu octroyer par le gouvernement le contrat pour le nouveau pont de l'île aux Tourtes. Et l'entreprise a besoin d'un accès via le lac des Deux Montagnes. Et Roxborough offre à la Ville, en échange de l'accès au quai, d'effectuer des travaux de sécurisation sur le quai selon une étude structurale que Roxborough réalisera à ses frais préalablement. Donc, la résolution vise à ce que, suite aux résultats de l'étude structurale du quai qui démontre que la structure du quai est en mesure de supporter le poids des équipements, le Conseil autorise Roxborough Excavation Inc. à effectuer les travaux d'excavation nécessaires à compter de juin 2023 jusqu'à la fin de l'année 2024, que Roxborough soit autorisé à utiliser le quai pour l'accès au lac des Deux Montagnes, d'autoriser la fermeture de la rue Wharf à un maximum de 5 occasions, d'autoriser l'utilisation d'une partie du dépôt à neige pour le préassemblage de certains équipements et qu'en échange des autorisations accordées par la Ville, Roxborough Excavation Inc. effectuera à ses frais des travaux de réhabilitation du coin nord-ouest du quai.
Merci. Do I have a proposer? Mark Gray, seconded by Doug Smith. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. So this is good news for us. And I do encourage anyone who has any particular interest in this to read the meeting minutes once they are adopted at the next meeting and posted online. There's a lot of details in every one of these resolutions. It's just if we were to read each one of them, it's already 10 p.m. We would be here till at least 10:30 or maybe even longer. But there's a lot of useful information. Section 9, Public Safety. Item 9.1, Road Network, installation of a restricted visibility sign on Cameron Street, whereas the request received by a citizen considering that the situation corresponds to the rules of application for the installation of such a sign. This resolution is to install a restricted visibility sign on the south side of Cameron Street near Civic number 178. So this is just after the bend up the hill. It is difficult for these residents to come out of their driveway considering the increased traffic on this main artery.
9.1, réseau routier, installation d'un panneau de visibilité restreinte rue Cameron. Considérant la requête reçue par un citoyen, considérant que la situation correspond aux règles d'application pour l'installation d'un tel panneau, la résolution vise à procéder à l'installation d'un panneau de visibilité restreinte en direction sud sur la rue Cameron, près du numéro civique 178.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Benoît Blais, seconded by Mark Gray. I'm getting tired. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. And you have been. Vous attendiez. Je pourrais la lire en français, mais Mélissa va la lire en français. Je vais la lire en anglais d'abord. Item 9.2, road network, no parking zone, Royal View Street. So this is to the question of the people who were here earlier, and one of them is still in the room with us. Whereas the request received from a resident of Royal View to restrict access to the street, whereas this portion of Royal View is a public street and access cannot be limited, whereas signage to regulate parking on a section of Royal View Street is already in place. This resolution is to harmonize the no parking on the south side of Royal View Street to include the public section located on lot 3810764 and to harmonize parking only with permit on the north side of the street to include the public section located on the same lot.
9.2, réseau routier, interdiction de stationnement rue Royal View. Considérant la demande reçue par un résident de la rue Royal View visant à restreindre l'accès à la rue, considérant que la section de rue concernée sur Royal View est une rue publique et qu'on ne peut en limiter l'accès, considérant la signalisation déjà en place pour réglementer le stationnement sur une section de la rue Royal View, la résolution vise à harmoniser l'interdiction de stationnement du côté sud de la rue Royal View pour inclure la section publique située sur le lot 3-810-764 et d'harmoniser le stationnement avec permis uniquement du côté nord de la rue pour inclure la même section de voie publique.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Après, dans la période de questions. So moved by Benoît Blais, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. Il reste deux résolutions. Item 9.3, road network, request to install a stop sign at the intersection of Sterling and Windcrest, whereas a request from a resident to add a stop sign at the intersection of Sterling and Windcrest streets, whereas the existing signage at the corner of Sterling and Windcrest is deficient, whereas the addition of a stop sign at the corner of Sterling and Windcrest would establish right-of-way and promote safety. This resolution is to proceed with the addition of a stop sign at the intersection of Sterling and Windcrest streets heading northeast on Sterling.
9.3, réseau routier, demande d'installation d'un panneau d'arrêt à l'intersection de Sterling et Windcrest. Considérant la demande venant d'un résident d'ajouter un panneau d'arrêt à cette intersection, considérant que la signalisation actuelle au coin de Sterling et Winecrest est déficiente, considérant que l'ajout d'un panneau d'arrêt à ce coin de rue établirait la priorité de passage et favoriserait la sécurité, la résolution vise à procéder à l'ajout d'un panneau d'arrêt à l'intersection des rues Sterling et Windcrest en direction nord-est sur Sterling.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Benoît Blais, seconded. Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 9.4, road network, request to install stop signs at the intersection of Mayfair and Cambridge, whereas a request from a resident to add 2 stop signs at the intersection of Mayfair and Cambridge, whereas the intersection is dangerous due to the configuration of the street, whereas the addition of 2 stop signs at this intersection to create a 3-way stop could reduce the risk and increase safety. This resolution is to proceed with adding 2 stop signs at the intersection of Mayfair and Cambridge in both directions on Cambridge Street.
9.4, réseau routier, demande d'installation de panneaux d'arrêt à l'intersection de Mayfair et Cambridge. Considérant la demande d'un résident d'ajouter 2 panneaux d'arrêt à l'intersection de ces rues, considérant que l'intersection est dangereuse en raison de la configuration de la rue, considérant que l'ajout de 2 panneaux d'arrêt à cette intersection pour créer une intersection avec un arrêt à 3 voies pourrait réduire le risque et accroître la sécurité, la résolution vise à procéder à l'ajout de 2 panneaux d'arrêt à l'intersection de Mayfair et Cambridge dans les 2 sens sur la rue Cambridge.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Darren Legault, seconded by Benoit Blais. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Cambridge Street is a street where there's a lot of speeding, and there's been an accident in the past that seriously damaged the health of a young person. So it is a street that we take seriously. There has been a request to put additional speeding restrictions and constraints on that street, which we are evaluating and looking into. So, with this, we are moving to la deuxième période de questions. Donc, si vous voulez vous présenter soit au micro ou en ligne, et on va alterner entre les deux. S'il en reste en ligne, je ne le sais pas, mais merci. Bye, Joseph. There are now 4 people left in the room. Oui, allez-y.
Je vais faire ça rapidement. Je veux juste comprendre c'est quoi qui est adopté. Alors, si je comprends bien, vous voulez prolonger les non-permis et les permis, dans le fond, le non-stationnement, puis l'accès seulement aux gens qui ont des permis sur Royal View. Puis pourquoi? Parce qu'en fait, je ne suis pas certain que le message qu'on voulait passer a été bien compris, parce que l'objectif, c'est de réduire le trafic sur notre rue. Si on donne l'accès encore plus, parce qu'en ce moment, je ne sais pas avant nous, mais en ce moment, les 2 côtés de la voie sont non stationnables. Les 2 côtés. J'ai des affiches no parking des 2 côtés de la rue sur Royal View.
Après le 3e
point. Oui, exact. Fait que moi, c'est à cet endroit-là que j'habite, puis c'est à cet endroit-là que moi et mes voisins, on est venus ce soir, parce que c'est problématique à cause que, justement, il y a du trafic qui est amené sur Royal View sans raison, à part, évidemment, les gens qui ont besoin de livrer ou des visiteurs ou quoi que ce soit. Mais ce qui se passe, c'est qu'en ce moment, il y a des panneaux qui ont été jetés à terre. On ne sait pas par qui, peut-être par des vandalismes ou quoi que ce soit. Ils n'ont pas été remis. Alors là, il y a des grands trous béants d'endroits de non-stationnement qui ne sont pas desservis par des panneaux de signalisation. Alors, ce qui se passe, c'est que les gens viennent, voient que c'est ouvert. Puis c'est ouvert à partir du rond-point, aller jusqu'au prochain panneau qui vient, je dirais, environ 150 mètres plus loin. Alors, pendant toute cette période-là, il y a des gens qui viennent stationner là. Encore une fois, comme je disais tantôt, ce n'est pas ça le problème. Le problème, c'est que ça attire les gens à aller plus loin, à contrevenir au fait que c'est un endroit qui n'a pas de stationnement. La sécurité est toujours là. Il y a des arguments à l'extérieur, les autos, etc. En tout cas, bref. Je veux juste être certain qu'on se comprenne sur la réalité qu'on vit. Moi, ce que je demande, c'est d'avoir plus d'affichage de non-parking sur Royal View, comme c'est le cas, pas de changer le règlement de stationnement pour qu'il y en ait plus.
OK. On pensait que c'était vraiment le fait que c'était pas égal les 2 bords en ce moment qui était le problème. Mais je pense que j'ai entendu le point au niveau de mettre à l'entrée de la rue, comme quoi c'est des gens uniquement avec permis qui peuvent stationner. Donc, à ce moment-là, ça aussi, on va le regarder lors de notre prochaine rencontre.
C'est ça, parce que dans le fond, moi, ce que je vous dis, c'est que l'affichage actuel fonctionne, c'est correct. C'est juste qu'il y a de l'affichage qui n'est plus là, qui a été mis à terre.
Ça, moi, je ne savais pas.
Bon, on a avisé la ville. On a un problème aussi, un lampadaire qui a été jeté à terre par un camion de vidange. Puis bon, c'est correct, là. Mais ce que je veux dire, c'est pas votre problème. Mais moi, pourquoi je viens ce soir, c'est parce qu'on a un problème de signalisation qui cause, évidemment, que les gens se rendent qui ne devraient pas se rendre, puis fait finalement qu'on a beaucoup de trafic. Fait que c'est pour ça.
On va le regarder à nouveau.
Fait que c'est possible parce qu'évidemment, puis des espaces de stationnement pour les gens qui détiennent des permis. Sur Beach, il y en a amplement, là, tout le côté de la rue. C'est rare que c'est plein. Ça vient vraiment quelques week-ends durant l'été. Fait qu'il y a déjà amplement de place. Fait que d'en rajouter, je pense pas que ça serait bénéfique nécessairement. Puis pour nous, c'est sûr que ça serait une problématique davantage. Fait que c'est juste ça que je voulais clarifier. OK? Merci.
Merci beaucoup. C'est apprécié.
Jim Duff.
All right. Jim Duff, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll try to make this as fast as I can. 3.1, 514 Main. Given the refusal for a replacement structure at 514 Main, will council take steps to clean up this property and 498 Main as well? I mean, they look pretty sorry, both of these old buildings. I know your intent is to try to find some path forward with their with their rehabilitation, perhaps. But in the meantime, the place looks pretty ratty. Can we do anything about it?
Yes, Darren has also brought this point to me this week again, and c'est pour une question de propriété. Il y a deux propriétés dans le corps, le noyau commercial. Donc là, il parle de 514 Main, où justement il y a un amas de, tu sais, quand ils ont mis à la porte un des locataires, ben, les biens de la personne sont à l'extérieur. Donc il faudrait demander au propriétaire, même si lui the reason that the owner has given me to date is that he's unable to reach the tenant that he is looking to eject. So he can't remove the goods, the person's goods, unless he has their authorization. So I suggested that he put at least in a in a container or some sort of protected measure around it, so it's not just sitting out there. But anyway, we need to send a letter and move that forward some, because it's been out there for a while. And the other property, I know there was a letter that was issued, but Martin has this on his table. Thank you, Jim.
8.3, the wharf rehab. My concerns are the transporting of heavy equipment through the rest of town. I mean, these are major bridge components. We don't know exactly. There's no big discussion of this. So what's being trundled through town? I mean, we just repaved the downtown core, in the process of repaving other parts, perhaps Cameron, Lakeview, and here we are tearing up the road with equipment that looks like it includes, what, a gantry crane, tracked vehicles. I mean, we're talking about major components here. I don't say no to this, but I think we need a much better understanding of what it's going to mean to all of the citizens of Hudson, not just the neighbors that live down in that sector of town, but to everybody.
That's a good point. And I know that in terms of road usage, right, around les carrières, pits, sand pits, gravel pits, that there is une redevance, there is a charge that is put to the trucking companies. So it's something that maybe we should look at, and Martin's certainly nodding. That's a great suggestion. Thank you, Jim. We'll look into that. I was also thinking that the turning radius might be a little bit difficult for some of the bigger equipment, but I'm guessing that they would be quite aware, knowing where they're coming. There's only 2 access points, as far as I know, along the river, and we are one of them. But if we can use it to our advantage, it's a good thing, considering that it's only for small number of items, and in the resolution it actually speaks to a maximum amount of time where there should be a nuisance involved. So it's a restricted window time frame.
That begs another question. Given that it is a navigable waterway, I would expect that the federal and provincial governments both have a dog in this fight. And have we checked with them? Is this a possibility? Are we going to have to get ministerial approval to do any kind of repairs to the dock?
So this was raised during caucus. Benoit brought this up, actually. And of course, they will have to get all the required authorizations and permits from the necessary bodies. They won't be able to do this work without having the proper approvals.
Okay. And two quick questions. Water meter pilot project. 4 words I know you hate to hear. But what's the status of this? Have we just vacated the idea of putting water meters into a select group of homes? 60, I think, was the number we had last council, and getting some sense of who's using water, when, and how?
Yeah, as you remember, Jim, that was a pilot project that was initiated by the ministry, looking to encourage us to reduce water usage, or to have data, or to incentivize residents to reduce their water usage. So I believe that should still continue to move forward, as it was a requirement. But Benoit's not a... Benoit, sorry, ça fait 2 fois que je viens de le dire. Je l'ai dit tantôt, puis là je le redis, je m'excuse. Martin is not aware of the pilot project, right? So water meters. So water meter pilot project, ça fait how many years, Jim? 3?
Oh, Jean-Pierre Roy is the guy that started that. So I would think that that's probably, what, about 7 or 8 years?
I don't think it's that long, but it's a few. It's definitely a few.
Mrs. Mayor, if I may, I don't
Yes.
think it's been quite that long, but I know it's still on Ian's radar.
Yes.
And it did get delayed because of COVID. I know we blame a lot of things on COVID, but last time Ian spoke to us about it was on his radar.
Yeah, the list had been generated. We'll have to confirm once more that all the people that were on the list that had originally approved being part of this are still residents, owners, and still want to. So yes, we definitely want this project to move forward.
Okay, one last very short question, trick question. Floating dock at Jack Layton Park. It's not in there yet. I suspect there's a plan to put it in there. Do we know when?
On a un quai flottant au parc Jack Layton. Il semblerait qu'il n'est pas encore installé. Probably because the water levels were so high, but I haven't gone. I know that the bridge needs to be repaired, so we're 6 weeks behind as well on some of our work projects. So we will look into it, is what I'm hearing from Martin. Thank you.
Merci infiniment. C'est parfait.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Well, we have extended our, what is it? Exhausted our agenda, is that how we say? Exhausted is right. So section 12, adjournment of meeting. It is moved by Doug Smith, seconded by Mark Gray, that the meeting be adjourned at 10:19 p.m.